Good evening, everyone. It is 6:02 p.m. Today is April 14th, 2026, and I am calling this Alameda County Water District Board of Directors meeting to order. We will start with item number 1. Roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Here.
Huang,
Here.
Gunther,
Here.
Sethy,
Here.
and Akbari.
Here. And we'll move to item number 2, salute to the flag, and I'd like to ask a special guest, Mr. Thomas Nizer, to please lead us in the salute to the flag this evening.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nizer. Before we move on to public comments, I will turn it to the general manager for some housekeeping remarks.
Great. Thank you, President Akbari. My name is Ed Stevenson, and I serve as the district's general manager. Just want to welcome everybody to our board meeting this evening. Members of the public may participate in this board meeting in person or remotely by either using the Zoom application or by telephone. Any member of the public present in person who wishes to make comments may approach the speaker's podium at the appropriate time. For those participating remotely, note that the meeting agenda, staff reports, and presentation materials for this meeting are all available on the district's website at acwd.org. You may reference the instructions at the top of the agenda for how to participate using the controls in the Zoom app or your dial pad if participating by telephone audio. This board meeting is being recorded and will be made available to the public for future viewing. Thank you all for attending, and President Akbari, that completes my housekeeping remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. We'll move on to item number 3, public comments. Members of the public may address the board on any issues not listed in the agenda, which are within the purview of the Alameda County Water District. We'll start with members of the public who are here in person. If you wish to speak, you can approach the speaker's podium. If not, we'll move online. If you would like to make any comments during public comments, you may raise your hand in the Zoom app now.
Right now, seeing no hands up.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will move on to item number 4, consent calendar. Do I have a motion to add any items to the consent calendar?
I'll make the motion to add items 5.1 and 5.2 to the consent calendar, please.
I'll second.
Your roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. Do I have a motion to adopt the consent calendar as amended?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. With that, we'll move to item 5.3, authorization of amendment to professional services agreement for the Newark Desalination Facility SCADA replacement and PLC programming update project, and I'll turn it to our general.
Great, thank you, President Akbari. And this item is actually somewhat similar to a number of other items that the board has seen in the past. This one's just got a couple of extra moving parts, so we thought we would address it separately, and I'll ask our Director of Engineering and Technology, Mr. Owok, to introduce the item.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, board members, staff, and community members. As the board might recall, the staff undertook a project to upgrade our operational technology SCADA system, and we have successfully completed 2 standalone projects for the water treatment plant as well as the blender facility. We are at the 3rd project at the Newark Desalination Facility, and we are getting ready to award a services contract to our vendor. And this is going to be the next phase of that program of replacing our PLC systems, the industrial control systems, as well as the SCADA system that helps us have these facilities talk to one another and have a readily access to what's happening at our treatment facilities and production facilities. With that, I will read a summary of this item and the recommendation, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. The supervisory control and data acquisition SCADA replacement and programmable logic controller programming update project will proactively address reliability, maintainability, security, compatibility, and technology issues of the existing SCADA systems. Following a competitive procurement process, the board authorized a professional engineering services agreement with Vertec Industrial Systems to replace the SCADA system at district facilities on an incremental basis. After successful completion of SCADA replacement implementations at the Peralta Tyson blending facility and water treatment plant number 2, staff is now ready to commence full deployment at remaining major facilities through the district. The next phase of the project will replace the existing SCADA system at the Newark desalination facility, commonly known as desal, and additionally proactively replace the PLC control systems, which is nearing the end of its useful life. Additional consulting services are now required to implement the new SCADA system configuration and PLC programming at desal. There's adequate funding in the approved 2-year project budget for this work, and this project was most recently reviewed with the Engineering and Information Technology Committee on April 1st, 2026. And board authorization of these services will help meet the district's strategic plan strategy, our newly named strategy CEV1, efficiently manage and maintain our infrastructure to ensure reliability. So staff's recommendation is by motion, authorize the general manager to execute a 6th amendment to the professional services agreement with Vertec Industrial Systems in an amount not to exceed $1,912,365 for professional services for system integration for the Newark desalination facility SCADA replacement and PLC programming upgrade project, job number 21466. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Awoke. I'll turn to the board to see if there's any questions or comments on this item. Hearing none, I'll turn to members of the public in person. I see no hands, so I'll look to Zoom. If you wish to make a comment or ask a question on this item, you can raise your hand in the Zoom app now. Not seeing any hands up, I'll look to the board to see if there's a motion.
I'll make the motion to move staff recommendation.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. Great, we will move on to item 5.4, public hearing and resolutions on the replenishment assessment for fiscal year 2026-2027, including finding that the replenishment assessment exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, also known as CEQA. I will be kicking off this public hearing with a script, if everyone will just bear with me here. So, on behalf of the Board of Directors, I'd like to welcome the public and your participation in this evening's public hearing. This public hearing will be on the replenishment assessment rate for groundwater pumped or extracted for purposes other than agricultural and municipal recreation. Thank you for attending in person, online, and by phone. Again, the purpose of this public hearing is to consider the proposed replenishment assessment rate, which only applies to the operation of water wells to extract groundwater, not to most customers who receive water from ACWD's distribution system. Now, I'd like to review the ground rules for the public hearing. First, the process. I will open the public hearing and ACWD staff will make a brief presentation. Upon conclusion of the presentation, the board and ACWD staff will receive public comments and/or protests. The board and staff will receive all comments without responding. Upon conclusion of the public comments and/or protests, the board will request input from staff, respond to questions and comments that were raised by the public, deliberate on these issues, and then close the public hearing. Then we will move to public comment. Each person will have 5 minutes to comment. We will require strict compliance with this time limit so that everyone is treated equally. Again, staff will provide you with 15 seconds advanced warning and will let you know when your time is up. Following that, we will move to speaker requests. Since this hearing is being conducted both in person and online by teleconference, persons who wish to make public comments can indicate so verbally and by raising your hand in the Zoom app when we open the public comment portion of this hearing. For those participating in person, there are speaker cards in the back of the boardroom. If you haven't already done so, please submit a speaker card to the district secretary. Completing a speaker card is voluntary. However, if you haven't already submitted a written protest and would like your comment to be counted as a protest, the speaker card can be used for that purpose. If you are participating online and by phone, the district secretary will unmute remote meeting participants who have raised their hand when making public comments, so please be sure to unmute your own phone line or computer microphone so that you may be heard. For those participating online that may not have a microphone on their computer, please dial in by phone at the number given on the agenda. If you are participating online and we are unable to hear you during the public comment portion of the hearing, please use the chat box feature of the Zoom interface to get the attention of the district secretary. Please state your name and service address when making a verbal comment as well. Providing this information is, of course, voluntary. However, if you haven't already submitted a written protest and would like your comment to be counted as a protest, stating your name, service address, and intent to protest can be used for that purpose. With that, I will open the public hearing. Staff will now make a presentation. I ask you to please refrain from asking questions or making comments until the public comment portion of the public hearing. And I'll turn it to the general manager.
Great. Thank you, President Akbari. And tonight on our agenda, we have a number of sort of milestone events for the district, and this is one of them. This is really the end of a process that began last year when the board directed staff to prepare the groundwater survey report. That was followed by a number of interactions with the board and the public, including the famous Mike Hollowell presentation. But this is the end of the process to finalize this replenishment assessment. And to get us started this evening, I'd like to turn it over to our Director of Water Resources, Ms. Heides.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Tonight's public hearing will be on the proposed replenishment assessment rate for groundwater pumped or extracted for purposes other than agricultural and municipal recreation. There is no proposed change to the rate. As provided in the District's Replenishment Assessment Act, a public hearing must be held on the second Tuesday in April for the purpose of determining whether and to what extent the cost of replenishing groundwater supplies within the district during fiscal year 2026-27 will be funded by a replenishment assessment. As the board may wish to take action immediately following tonight's public hearing, staff has prepared the remaining 3 resolutions required for the replenishment assessment for fiscal year 2026-27. To provide some background on this item, on November 13th, 2025, the board ordered the preparation of the 2026 survey report on groundwater conditions, also known as the survey report, as provided in Section 7 of the District's Replenishment Assessment Act. As a result, the following actions took place. On February 2nd, 2026, letters were sent to all interested parties identified as part of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, informing them that the board would be discussing and considering items pertaining to the Replenishment Assessment Act at the February 12th, March 12th, and April 14th, 2026 regular Board of Directors meetings. On February 16th, 2026, the board, 1, received the completed survey report and the 2025 groundwater monitoring report. 2, declared its intent to raise funds by a replenishment assessment in fiscal year 2026-27, and 3, scheduled a public hearing for April 14th, 2026. On March 12th, 2026, staff presented to the board the report's findings and basis for the recommended replenishment assessment. Staff recommended no change to the replenishment assessment rate for fiscal year 2026-27. The rate for uses other than agricultural and municipal recreation would remain at $557 per acre foot of groundwater pumped. Notice of the date, time, and instructions with remote access information for the public hearing was published in the newspaper, the East Bay Times, as required by the Replenishment Assessment Act. The notice stated that there is a 120-day statute of limitations for challenging any new, increased, or extended fee or charge. All of the documents referred to above are included on the district's website, www.acwd.org. Tonight's hearing is being held in person and virtually. All interested parties may be heard in support of or opposition to the proposed replenishment assessment, the survey report, or the board's determinations. Prior to the beginning of tonight's board meeting, the district has not received any comments on the replenishment assessment. For setting the replenishment assessment for the coming fiscal year, the Replenishment Assessment Act specifies the actions that must be taken through board resolution no sooner than the close of the public hearing, but no later than the second Tuesday of May. The resolutions, 1, contain the findings that update groundwater conditions and state the amount of replenishment assessment funds needed next fiscal year. 2, set the replenishment assessment rates, $8 per acre foot for agricultural and municipal recreation uses, which is the maximum allowed under the Replenishment Assessment Act, and $557 per acre foot for all other uses. And finding that the extension of the replenishment assessment is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. And 3, provide procedures and statement forms. Approval of this item is consistent with Strategic Plan Strategy WS1, protect, maintain, and enhance the sustainability, reliability, and quality of local, regional, and imported water supplies, as well as Strategic Plan Goal 3, maintain the district's financial stability and promote transparency. So tonight, the recommendation before the board is to conduct a public hearing as scheduled and receive comments from the public on the survey report and proposed replenishment assessment for fiscal year 2026-27. Then, by motion, adopt the following required resolutions. 1, stating findings and determining need for replenishment assessment. 2, levying a replenishment assessment and finding the replenishment assessment exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act. And 3, providing procedures for payment of replenishment assessment. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Heides. Will the district secretary please call up each speaker that has submitted a speaker card?
We have no speakers.
Thank you. Will the district secretary please unmute the meeting participants who have raised their hands so that they may make public comments? And again, you can raise your hand in the Zoom app if you wish to make a public comment. I'm
No
seeing
hands, yeah.
Thank you. Seeing no hands. I'll just check once more. Is there anybody in person or online who would like to address the board? If not,
No hands, yeah, or no speakers.
thank you. Has the district secretary received any written comments?
No written comments were received.
Thank you. Then I'll move to the board. Does any director have any questions of staff or legal counsel based on any questions or comments presented by the public, but more generally, any questions or comments on this item?
Not this evening.
Seeing none. Would the general manager, staff, or legal counsel like to add anything or address any questions? Seeing none.
Nope.
You guys are making my meeting easy tonight. Well, then I will declare this public hearing now closed. Okay. Then I will look to the board for a motion on the related to staff's recommendation on this item.
Go ahead.
I will make the motion to move staff recommendation, which is adoption of 3 required resolutions.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. Great.
I quickly wanted to make a comment here to thank Mike and Michelle and your entire team for the exhaustive work, all the hours that you put in, and the excellent workmanship in everything that you do. That's why this becomes so easy.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. I will second Director Sethy's comment as well. Great. With that, we will move on to item 5.5, resolution approving the Alameda County Water District Water Resources Master Plan 2050. And I'll turn it to our general manager.
Okay, great. Thank you, President Akbari. And I mentioned a number of milestone events this evening. Here's another one, and we'll keep the train going here. This is the end of the process involving the development of our Water Resources Master Plan. I do see a hand up in the Zoom app. If you'd like, we could proceed with the item and then take a comment, or we'd be happy to take a comment now.
better.
I think we can take the comment now if there's a member of the public who's eager to speak. So I think the name is Mr. Dennis Martin, if I see that correctly. You can unmute yourself and make a comment or ask your question at this time.
Thank you, President Akbari. Mr. President, members of the board, and district staff, I'm Dennis Martin, speaking on behalf of the Building Industry Association of the Bay Area. BIA appreciates the significant effort that Alameda County Water District has put into developing the Water Resources Master Plan. It's a thoughtful, long-range framework that prioritizes reliability, local control, and system reliance. BIA recognizes the important work of the district and that the reliable and sustainable provision of water in the region is critical to long-term residential and commercial growth. That said, we want to highlight some important considerations for the development industry as you move forward. First, BIA acknowledges that the WRMP is a planning document, not a fee study. It includes high-level cost estimates, evolving project scopes, and in some cases, uncertain timing, particularly in later phases that may not be needed until well into the future. We trust that the district recognizes that it is important that this plan not be used as a substitute for a detailed engineering and nexus analysis that is required to justify future capacity charges. Second, Portfolio 12 represents a significant investment, over $880 million, with a strong emphasis on treatment, storage, and long-term supply reliability. Many of these investments appear to address system-wide benefits, not just growth. Future fee updates must clearly distinguish what costs are attributable to new development versus existing system needs. Third, growth assumptions do matter. Prior analysis have used lower growth projections than regional forecasts. Getting this right is essential to avoid overburdening new housing with a disproportionate share of system costs. And finally, we urge the district to fully account for all available funding sources, rate increases, grants, existing funds, to ensure that there is no double recovery in future fees. In closing, BIA strongly supports the district's long-term planning efforts, while strongly encouraging a transparent, data-driven, and legally sound approach when translating this plan into any future capacity charges. We hope that our review that we submitted last week and comments submitted with that review are received as they were intended, a look into the implications that the WRMP may have on the considerations that our industry gives to developing in the district. I want to thank you for your time, your accommodation in allowing our comments to be submitted, and your consideration of those comments. And if the chair allows, I would like to introduce Mr. Benjamin Kerrigan of Development and Financial Advisors, who prepared the review that we submitted. And I believe Mr. Kerrigan is online, but I'm not positive actually. So thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. And I do see Mr. Kerrigan online with his hand up as well, so I'll ask the district secretary to allow him to unmute. And Mr. Kerrigan, you may speak now as well.
Thank you, Dennis. My name is Ben Kerrigan. I work with the firm Development Financial Advisory. We have worked with the BIA for many years in reviewing various studies, and one of which is our documents that are preliminary. We understand that the Water Resources Master Plan is a very high level type of analysis, and it's more of a framework, if you will, sort of a guiding a document on how the district will manage their water supply. The BIA and our firm have reviewed the Water Resources Master Plan from a point of view as to how it could affect capacity charges. We understand that the district will be planning to update its capacity charges and rates sometime in the near future. I believe in 2028. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And before that, it will conduct a study, a rate study and capacity charge study. So reviewing this water resources master plan was very critical for us to see what could be integrated in the capacity charge. We don't really have any comments, but we do have questions. And one of the questions we have is that the CIP costs in portfolio 12 is very it's a very large amount. As Dennis had pointed out, it's over $880 million. And one of the questions we have is that cost, will that cost be divided between rates and capacity charges? And if so, as in the capacity charge component, what percent of that $880 million will be allocated to future development? The second question we have is in the previous or the most recent capacity charge study that was conducted in 2024 had equivalent meter units allocated for future development of 44,623. And our question is the district anticipating that number to increase? The third is our question. Our third question is, I believe Dennis had covered briefly, is and with those costs of $881 million, how much of that will be funded through rates, grants, and other revenue sources that will at least alleviate some of the cost to future development? I think those are our questions, the primary ones, and hopefully, if not now, the staff would consider responding to our questions, so at least we have some sort of direction as to what we could anticipate the next capacity charges could look like. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Martin and Mr. Kerrigan. I just want to note very quickly that we did receive written comments from BIA and DFA, and those are included on our website for folks to reference as well. We do have a presentation on this item, but I'll see if staff wants to respond to questions first or.
Yeah, maybe just generally, and thank you both, Mr. Martin and Mr. Kerrigan. We do appreciate the collaboration that we've had with BIA over many, many years, and we appreciate the feedback that you've provided on the Water Resources Master Plan. We do have a presentation. I'd like to go through that. One thing I will suggest is that we are not as part of this presentation nor as part of the details within the Water Resources Master Plan, really reviewing the details, the breakdown as to how development fees will be incorporated into all of this over time. That is a future step, as Mr. Kerrigan pointed out. So we won't have detailed answers to the specifics in terms of development fee amounts and so forth. We have to have a plan to start, right? And so what this, as the board and public knows, this plan, this item this evening follows several years of work with the board, with the public, with our interested parties throughout our service area and beyond. And so this is the plan to start. Once we have the plan, then we start working with that plan in all of the different ways, including fees and charges, development fees, but also the specifics within the plan and refining that plan and timing over time. So there's a whole lot of work ahead of us. This is a milestone, but we're not at a point where we can respond to all of the items that were raised. So with that, I will turn it over to our Director of Water Resources, Ms. Heides, who can get us started on the presentation.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Stevenson. This is a big day. And before we jump into the presentation, I would just like to take a moment. I'm really pleased to introduce to you, the board and public today, the district's new water supply and planning manager, Dr. Amparo Flores. Dr. Flores comes to the district with over 20 years of water resources management experience, including approximately 15 years in the public sector working at Zone 7 Water Agency, as well as work in consulting. She served as integrated planning manager at Zone 7 for 6 years and has largely focused throughout her career on water supply planning, both near-term and long-term, and is very familiar with state water project operations. Dr. Flores is a licensed civil engineer in California and holds degrees in environmental engineering from UC Berkeley and MIT, and completed her doctorate in engineering for sustainable development at University of Cambridge. We are thrilled to have her on the ACWD team and to have her here tonight to present on the finalization of the Water Resources Master Plan 2050 effort. So with that, I'm happy to turn it over to Dr. Flores to present this item.
Thank you, Ms. Heides. Good evening, President Akbari, members of the board. Tonight marks an important milestone in water supply planning for Alameda County Water District as we present to you the final Water Resources Master Plan for adoption. It has been a long road to get here. I'm honored to be joining at the final stretch and looking ahead to the next part of the journey. The planning for the plan started in 2023, a few years ago, and phase 2, the development of the plans, started a year and a half ago. So it's been a long effort, and tonight we are here ready to present the final plan for your consideration. This has been a tremendous effort by staff, by you, and other interested parties. And I think we're bringing something to you that you can be proud of. I will just quickly go over a few slides highlighting the key components of the Water Resources Master Plan. I'll go through them fairly quickly since they should all look familiar to you. So what is the Water Resources Master Plan, the WRMP 2050? This is the roadmap, a plan, a vision for the district's 25-year water supply strategy that will be guiding infrastructure investments and water supply development. And this was developed, anchored around 5 goals presented here on to the right of the slide with your input. This is the product of a rigorous engagement with the public through workshops with interested parties, workshops with you, emails, presentations, a public survey that gathered 400 responses from the community, a public input web tool that allowed us to gather some feedback from the public. As you know, we presented the draft plan for public review in March. You received a copy, or we discussed a comment from BIA at that time at the board workshop. And then the more detailed comment letter from last week provided by BIA was included in your package and was very well covered by our speakers earlier tonight. All right. I just wanted to mention that I think as has been discussed, the comments from BIA I think don't directly affect the plan itself, but really are directed towards the next steps, the implementation, the efforts that are forthcoming, including the development of the connection charges starting around 2028. Again, 2050, what does it do? Lays out a roadmap. This is to support the district's ability to continue to reliably meet customer water demands through 2050 and beyond. It builds on the 1995 Integrated Resources Plan, a 30-year document, and also incorporates the changing water supply landscape over the past few decades, in particular focusing on climate change impacts, as we've learned more about what that looks like, and regulatory impacts on supplies. This helps us meet Strategic Plan Goal 2, to sustain a reliable, high-quality water supply for our customers. And lastly, as I mentioned, this incorporates extensive outreach and engagement, as well as being built on a foundation of a very rigorous technical process. The plan presents a three-phased approach and is really centered around an early focus on local supplies and bolstering the resilience of our supplies, increase and addressing the reliability challenges that we anticipate. While this looks way down the road, decades down the road, this is not intended to be a static document. There's a lot of work to do. We will continue to refine and reevaluate as we conduct studies to fill data gaps and continue to explore opportunities for partnerships and grant funding opportunities, as was noted previously. And the district has a strong track record there. Again, the phased approach allows us to refine our plans over the coming years and decades, including planning for financial investments. This also allows us to defer large capital investment in a potential new water supply. You'll see some clustering of costs in the next 10 years, much of which is already covered in the CIP, but there is potential for substantial investment in new water supplies. But we have time to consider the need for this and the nature of this new supply and define that further. These costs are high level, as been noted earlier, and we'll continue to rigorously evaluate these supply options. The plan is tied to a number of district-wide initiatives, and it's already beginning to inform a number of efforts, including the Urban Water Management Plan, which you'll be seeing in June for your approval. And as noted earlier, it will also be informing the development of a capital improvement program and connection fee studies, et cetera. This is a look ahead of what's in front of us over the next 5 years in the near term. We'll really be focusing again on using the plan to inform the development of the CIP, looking at schedules and costs. We'll be conducting a number of studies to fill data gaps, looking at the southern portion of the groundwater basin, for example. We're going to be looking to enhance local supplies, working with our partners on enhancing Del Valle yields. We've already executed a UBA accord, providing access to a new source of water. And throughout this process, we'll be continuing to engage with you, with interested parties and the public, as we better define the projects and bring them forward for implementation. And lastly, we'll do a review in 5 years to incorporate lessons learned, results of studies, decisions made, yeah, that will allow us to continue to make sure that this is a document that remains appropriate. Yeah. So in closing, we'd like to recommend that you adopt a resolution approving the Alameda County Water District Water Resources Master Plan 2050. I'm also happy to answer any questions, and we've also got staff here who can assist.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Flores. I'll look to the board first to see if anyone has any questions or comments on this item.
No questions, but just some comments. Just want to say thank you to staff. This is an incredible process. I am just totally amazed at the creativity that's reflected in this report. I don't believe as of 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we're thinking about southern groundwater facilities. It's like you could pull rabbits out of hats whenever we need something. That's really appreciated. I know a lot of work goes into it. Just thank you. And I know it's teamwork. It's not just the few of you that's currently in the boardroom. So thank you for everyone that participated and developed this great plan.
Yeah, once again, great plan. It'll help us. But one thing I would like to point out, and you know, the purified water for recharge, it's a big dollar value. But I mean, we're talking year 2065. There could be a lot of changes before then. This is just a comment for the public. The numbers are there. Don't panic. This is there for planning 40 years out. That's a long time. I don't think I'm going to be making that decision. Seriously doubt it. But, you know, it's there. And actually, that's great. We're planning. We're looking out into the future and trying to see what we're going to do. What can we do? That's a possibility. There are other possibilities that may take over from that one. The staff has over the years done that multiple times, and we roll with the flow. Things come up, we adjust. You know, you look at the other end of this thing, PFAS. Where was that 5 years ago? So, you know, things come up, they change, we adjust. That's why we have a good staff. We appreciate that. Appreciate the report. I just wanted to make that comment that, you know, it's there. Doesn't mean a whole lot other than the fact it's there. It's a planning tool. Like I said, I don't think I'm going to be here to pull that trigger. So that's all I got to say, other than great job. And we'll continue to pull the rabbits out of the hat. Thank you.
Actually, I have one more comment, if I may. I just want to address our speaker's concern. I personally appreciate the fact that BIA has always been a partner and an active participant in all our study, our planning projects, and they also participated, I believe, in all our rate setting process. And I am pretty sure in future development related rate evaluation process, we'll have an open door and we'll invite them to participate as part of our process.
I just, on the record, yeah, it confirmed.
Thank
Like
you.
I said, we've got a long history working with the BIA and we're proud of what we've done with the development community and all of our other customers in our service area. So they've been very active in many of our processes and we look forward to continuing to engage.
Thank you.
Couple of comments. First, I think that all of us need to respect the process that led to the conclusions that we have in this planning document. That each of us on the board and maybe even on staff don't necessarily agree with every particular item in the plan, but we moved forward with consensus decision-making, explored all the opportunities. I know that there are some things in this plan that I would like to explore or have explored. But I think the benefit, at least in terms of how I see the output now, is that this is going to allow the district and staff to be very, very focused and not look at every extenuating opportunity that might be available. This is a plan from the very beginning where we decided we wanted to have pretty much strong control over our destiny within our own service area. And I think that we've achieved that. I'm not saying that I will vote if I'm here in the future on every element, or I certainly will ask a lot of questions. I know that. But I think it is a compliment to our staff, our consultants, input received from the board, from outside in the community, that we've ended up with a plan like this. And I know Mr. Nizar was very instrumental in the previous plan that was adopted in our guiding light for the district. To have your imprint on this document now through 2050 is that's saying a lot for your career. This will be our guiding light. So thank you to everybody who put in effort here, and I will certainly be voting in favor of this.
Thank you. Dr. Weed?
Yes, thank you. Thank you to the staff for the effort that went into this. I do have some strong reservations, if not objections. it's one thing that we hopefully can highlight is that water has not and will not be a development constraint in our area. And I hope the development community would recognize that as being a primal concern in the area, given other interests which have little to do with water supply and have other implications. I would hope that we, if not now, within 5 years, we can add water marketing as one of the roles of this district. We're well blessed with several different water sources and have really shown that we have the ability to develop water rights, even if they're not in trading. We've done some in the San Joaquin Valley and done very well with it. And that should be, I think, one of our roles in the district. I thank the consultant for putting on the note that these are $2025. That was a help when I looked at this, and one that raises one of the issues. If this was a 2050 plan, I would support it. The problem is we went out to 2065 and put in recycled water. Conspicuous by its absence is any reference to desalination. Technology is changing. It's going in the direction of desal, not recycled. And in the political situation we live in, we've set ourselves up to be pulled into a recycled water project when somebody comes through with a big grant or legislative program to support it, and it's in our plan. How can we argue against it? It's not purified. It's not pure water. There was an article today that was really Hanson Bridget sent out a legal note talking about microplastics being added to the future contaminants. Also in that effort by EPA was pharmaceuticals. We have no answer. PFAS at 4 parts per trillion are 10,000 times greater than the health advisory. You use the word purified, or we become the spokesperson for another recycled project in the Tri-Valley area. We're not being honest to the public or ourselves. So the cost of the recycled water project is shown as $518 million in current dollars, 40 years out, using 3.5% as an average annual increase in cost. In 20 years, you double. In 40 years, you redouble that. So that comes to $2.5 billion for nominal water supply. And you throw in interest, you're at $5 billion. But to be facetious, we'll have about 100,000 customers, $50,000 per customer. Not to worry, we have a help on tap program. Portions of this be difficult to explain to bond rating company, which has given us AAA and Moody's. Where is the economic rationale or rationality of what we're proposing tonight? So mine will be a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Weed. I also want to thank staff for an excellent planning document. I'm going to be voting in favor for sure. I want to address some of the concerns, Director Weed. I just want to be absolutely clear for the public. This is a planning document, but not a commitment. And I think of everyone on the board here, I'm probably the most amenable to recycled water, and even I am highly skeptical of its usefulness in our portfolio. But I think it's important for us to at least include it as a supply option should we need it going forward. And I just want to be very clear, we're not making a commitment to recycled water. We're not making a commitment to any specific plan. But it's important for us to at least have it in consideration. And as the regulatory environment changes, as funding opportunities change, we'll evaluate other options as well, including, I'm sure, desalination, which I know you're a lot more fond of.
Be nice if it were in the plan.
It's even beyond the planning horizon of
As is our recycle.
Right, that's what I'm referring to. So I just want to be very clear and just make sure that that's well understood by the public. I did want to address BIA and DFA as well. I think Mr. Martin mentioned that he hopes that we'll engage and be transparent, data-driven, and operate with a sound legal basis. And I just want to reiterate that that is exactly our commitment. And we appreciate the work that BIA has put in with us to evaluate these plans and to be forthright with their concerns as well. So those are my comments for tonight. I want to turn it to members of the public. I'll start with members of the public in this room. If you wish to make any comments or ask any questions, you may do so now. Seeing none, I'll turn back to our members of the public online. If you wish to make a comment or ask a question, you may raise your hand in the Zoom app now. I see none, so we will turn it to the board, and I'll ask if there's a board recommendation.
I'll move staff recommendation.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
No.
Huang,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. Great. We will move on to item 5.6, a little bit bittersweet, but this is a resolution honoring Thomas Viglione Nizer upon his retirement from district service. And so I'll turn it to Mr. Stevenson, but I will also ask Mr. Nizer to come and join us at the podium as well.
It's great. Thank you, President Akbari. And that's great. I'm glad that you asked Mr. Nizer to the podium. I was going to do the same thing. I figured the guy's very comfortable being there. He's been there zillions of times over the years.
It says 3 minutes right here.
We may bend the rules on this particular item, but yeah, I spoke about milestone items this evening, and this is definitely one of them. A key item for the district, certainly for Mr. Nizer. I'm glad that item 5.5 is done. 5.6 would feel a little bit different if 5.5 wasn't done by now. So I just want to acknowledge the history of Mr. Nizer with this organization. It's the vast majority of his career has been here, and Laura will speak some more, but I just, before tossing it over to Laura, I just wanted to express my appreciation for the mark that he's left on the organization, on the many people here, the generations of people here. I mean, this guy's pretty old. Been here about as long as I have, and I don't know how you held out. But has seen us through so many critically important things over the years. And Mr. Director Sethy mentioned, having a heavy hand in our original IRP, the various updates over the years. Importantly, driving the initiatives in those plans to completion. It's one thing to have a plan. It's another thing to guide it there and to make it successful. And we are thrilled with the folks that will be standing on the shoulders of our giant, Mr. Nizer, moving forward. But we also, recognize those many great things that he has brought this organization. And lastly, I'll just say he's always impressed me as somebody who, at the same time, can be a technical wizard in the details, dealing with the most complex technical things successfully, and also at the highest level, policy things and political elements. And this is a rare combination of skills and attributes. And so a special moment this evening. Yes, bittersweet for sure. With that, I will turn it over to Ms. Heides for some more formalities this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. And also, we do normally have these a little further up in the agenda, but as you know, Mr. Nizer was very involved in the previous item, so I do want to just acknowledge that off the top here, and appreciate his guidance of the team on that effort as well on the plan. So now I'll just go ahead and launch into tonight's item. So Thomas Viglione Nizer will retire from the district on May 15th, 2026 as Water Supply and Planning Manager after 24 years of service with the district. And it's my honor today to read through his full resolution or staff report and history of his time here at the district. So Thomas Filioni Nizer started his long-term career with the district on April 30th, 2002 as an engineer one in the engineering department and became a water resources engineer on July 7th, 2003. Thomas was promoted to senior water resources engineer on November 21st, 2005, to water supply supervisor on July 6, 2014, and most recently to his role as water supply and planning manager on May 11th, 2015. Prior to joining the district full-time, Thomas served as a Peace Corps volunteer in Namibia, worked overseas in water resources consulting, and worked as an intern and contract engineer at the district. Thomas obtained his bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of California, Irvine, and his master's degree in civil and environmental engineering from University of California, Berkeley. Thomas is also a licensed civil engineer in the state of California and a graduate of Leadership Fremont. During his time at the district, Thomas has served as a leader in the district's long-term water resources planning and conservation. His responsibilities over the years have included a wide range of technical work, including water distribution system modeling and assessments, water demand forecasting, water supply and cost optimization, water supply planning, and conservation analysis. Throughout his career, Thomas has played a key role in the development and oversight of district planning documents and activities, such as evaluation of regional water supply projects, development of water supply assessments for new local projects, completion of several iterations of the district's urban water management plan, implementation and periodic updates of the 1995 Integrated Resources Plan, leading the district's drought task force in response to 2 historic droughts, and leading the development of the Water Resources Master Plan 2050. He has supported multiple district-wide efforts and initiatives, including advanced metering infrastructure implementation, emergency response planning, development of an optimization team for water supply and operational planning, grants team activities, and water rate setting processes. Additionally, Thomas has represented the district admirably in many external collaborations that have benefited district customers. Thomas has long been an advocate for regional collaborations, participating in Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation Agency activities, Bay Area Regional Reliability Planning efforts, and development of a regional drought contingency plan, and integrated regional water management planning or IRWIMP initiatives. Notably, throughout Thomas's career at the district, he has participated in technical studies, collaboration, and planning activities that have driven the district's effort to restore fish passage on Alameda Creek for steelhead trout in support of continued water supply operations in harmony with species protection and watershed health. Thomas has been an active participant on behalf of the district in the Alameda Creek Fisheries Restoration Work Group, gaining a reputation for his dedication to collaboration, good science, healthy watersheds, and balancing the needs of fish and water supply. Over the past 24 years, Thomas has contributed significantly to the district's long-term vision and plan for water resources development through the efforts noted here and many more. With the completion of the Water Resources Master Plan 2050 this year under his leadership, he is leaving the district well-positioned to successfully navigate the many changes in climate and regulations that will surely be ahead in the coming decades. Thomas has maintained a high level of professionalism and integrity during his time at the district, and he will be greatly missed by his many longtime friends and colleagues. And so reluctantly, tonight's recommendation is, by motion, adopt a resolution honoring Thomas Vilioni Nizer and expressing appreciation for 24 years of service to the district.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Heides. Before I turn to board for comments, Mr. Nizer, I'd like to give you an opportunity to make any comments if you wish to do so.
Oh, sure. 3 minutes.
Actually, I think it's 3 minutes for everything you've worked on, so that probably comes up to a couple of hours.
I'll just say that it's really been a great honor working here. I was reminded last week when I was in graduate school and the sign was posted for the internship out here. Reading through and I was like, that's exactly what I got in this field for, all this integrated work. I was told throughout graduate school you had to specialize groundwater, surface water, treatment, whatever. You had to be specialized. And I didn't have interest in specializing, and I found the perfect job for that. So I like to say I specialize in being a generalist. generally specialized, I guess. I'm not sure what to call it. Anyway, it's exactly what I was looking for, career to work here. The board's been great to work with and management staff. I've never felt compromised ethically in any way working here. I've always felt that the district's mission led us down a nice, well-lit path and made life easy. I appreciate it. And thank you for the watch.
And Thomas, are you joined here by any friends or family tonight?
Yes, my wife. Gonna come up? Like, no. Is she? It's online.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for lending Thomas to us for all these years, and Thomas is consummate professional, and so we're gonna miss him, but hopefully you guys will enjoy more time together going forward. Let me turn to the board and see if you guys have any comments.
Oh boy, always hard to be the first one to start. I remember at the last workshop, I threatened to find something embarrassing to say about you and try as I might. I couldn't think of anything. In fact, all I could thought of are all the embarrassing things I said to you or the questions I asked. Well, Thomas, thank you for being so knowledgeable and so patient with me, with all the strange questions I have, with all the minor panics I have about water supply. I still remember going to you saying, oh my God, what happens if we lose the state water's project water? Can we bring water back from semi-tropic? Is there any way to do this? Am I supposed to be all freaking out at this point? And you're just really calm and explain to me how things work and how we could still reliably supply water to our customers. Thank you for that patience. Thank you for that knowledge. And as I was listening to Laura reading the resolution, one thing kind of popped in my mind about how well you know our system. I still remember quite a few years back, I was grumbling to you about how hard my water is in Ardenwood. Thomas being Thomas, he looked at me and said, there's a way we could fix that. We might need to make some changes to the way water flows. And I'm like, no, that's going to unbalance the system. But when you have a comment or question or problem, Thomas has a solution. I was pretty surprised how fast you came back and said, yeah, we could fix that. We could lower your hardness, or we need to tweak this and tweak that. I'm like, I don't think so. It's kind of not worth upsetting the entire ACWD water distribution system just because Director Huang wants a little bit softer water, and I'm still committing to that. Thomas, you are not only very knowledgeable, you're also very good at explaining complicated things, at least to me and to the board. I still remember your roadmap with a different water supply, different options, future forecasts, including that giant cloud that's crossing the road because the future is uncertain. You're just so good at visually helping us understand the problems we're facing and the options we have. That's definitely really appreciated. And thank you for kind of covering out for me when I ask for stupid questions. You kind of just gently flow into something that makes sense and nudge me towards the right direction. I just also really appreciate it. And now for your better half. We kept Thomas here late many, many nights just because the five of us have a lot of questions. And we ask a lot of Thomas because we ask a lot of questions because we have an obligation to our customers to ask those questions. And Thomas would stay, Thomas would investigate, and he'll always come back with the answers for us. Not always the one we like, but you'll have a good answer. Thank you for lending him to us. I know he takes a lot of toll out of the family when we need to keep him here late for all these late night board meetings. There are a lot of time you have to fill in for him because he just can't physically be there for the family because of us. Thank you. Thank you for lending him to us. We really appreciate it. I really hate to see him retired because I know he has a great successors, and I am sure Dr. Flores will be really good at helping me cover things up if I ask something stupid. But I'll miss you, Thomas. I really will miss you. come back and see us. Hopefully, I will see both of you at the holiday party or the summer picnics. Or if not, since I just realized you graduated from Berkeley, I might see you at Berkeley engineering events in the future.
There's just so much to say, and so hard. This is one of those things, one of those, items that I really didn't want to see in the calendar. But I should clarify that though, because I wanted to see it, but I didn't want to see it. I wanted to see it for Thomas. I didn't want to see it for us. You're going to be missed. This little paragraph about what you've done here doesn't even show it. I'm sitting here thinking about back in the droughts, and all of a sudden we're transferring water with people and places that people said was never going to happen. And all of a sudden, it was like, we did it. I go to conferences and I hear people talking about desal, and I hear them talking about water banking, how this could do this and this could do that. It's like, we're doing it. We've been doing it. We've been doing it because of the likes of you. Fish passage. There's 3 items here tonight. It's so appropriate that you're item 5.6. I mean, 5.5, the water resources planning. I don't know how it gets any better than that. To have your retirement item follow that. I don't think I've ever seen that here. Just to have somebody so critical to an item retire the next item. That's impressive. Not to mention, if you go down further on, we talk about the fish sliders later on. Chinook, steelhead, they work. What a journey that was. And it's been great having you on that journey. As much as I'm going to miss you, I want to say good luck to you and enjoy it. You deserve it. Thank you. Thank you for everything you've done here.
Thomas, and to Mrs. Nysar, it's always nice to see you at the picnics and other occasions. But I just want to say I endorse all of the comments from fellow board members and staff so far. But I would like to focus on something special. How you have lived up to your middle name, Viglione. Your name is derived from 2 Latin sources. Vigil, meaning watchful, diligent, vigilant, and persistent. And the suffix "one" suggests a person of stature or importance, and one who has command of issues, is known for their alertness and attentiveness. How could these words better describe you? You've lived up to all of these things. And in researching your name, because it kind of clicked in my mind, I said, I've seen this name before. I've seen the name at wineries in northern Italy and in the Ticino region of the Italian part of Switzerland. And so there are some collectibles out there in terms of the Viglione name for wineries, some special wines you might want to buy. But you certainly lived up to the very definition of your middle name. I find that pretty hard to believe for anybody, but you did it. And so as you depart here, I hope with all of your talents and everything that we see you around the industry, maybe where you have some little bit more flexible time, but you are a valuable resource, have been for the district. You can be that for the entire state water industry too. So I hope we will see you around and wish you all the best.
Thank you. And thanks for the etymology of the name there. It's just a family name.
Yeah, and I know you have some wine history too.
Thank you. Now, Thomas, thank you and your wife for being with us part of the district for so many years. And in water time, a Latin reference is well appropriate. Two stories come to mind as your years. I recall when we had the 4 months of drought that where we had a zero allocation to the system. We were not, the state had turned off our tap, including the water bank in the San Joaquin Valley that we invested so much money in was not available. And you came through federal water through Contra Costa. Even more so, you were able to close the books on that. It took a long while because it's an awkward and archaic system that we do our water accounting. You mastered it. The second, when we were looking for a general manager, the board asked that you be brought in as an interviewee. That was unusual in this district, and I think reflected our extraordinary appreciation for what you had done for ACWD. So I wish you well and good speed on them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I concur with all of the positive things that have been shared so far. You made a huge impact on this district and on our ratepayers. I want to share a couple of stories, one that you know and one that I don't think you know. But the first time that I got to actually sit with you at length was when we drove to Oroville after the Oroville spillway issue, and we drove together. I mean, it was like 3.5 hours each way, and we really got to get to know each other. I remember on that drive, we got to talk about personal stuff, but a lot about water. And you really challenged me on recycled water because that was kind of the big thing that I came in pushing for when I came to the district. And you educated me a lot on our entire portfolio, what it takes to add a new supply, and specifically we got to talk about the challenges related to recycled water. And so I really appreciate the education and just all of the time that you've spent educating me and talking through and debating ideas. And I think Judy also touched on that as well. The second story that I don't think you know, when I first joined the district, I went to my first aqua conference. I'm sitting at a table with other directors and staff who I've never met before, and like, oh, what district are you with? And I was like, oh, I'm with Alameda County Water District. And right away, someone was like, oh, Thomas's district. I was like, just who is Thomas? But you, not only have you made such an impression here at ACWD, but regionally and across the state, your impact has been felt. And so I hope you know that you're really leaving some big shoes to fill, and we're really going to miss you here at ACWD. I do have a question that I ask everyone as they're retiring. What are you looking forward to most in retirement?
Right now, it's mostly spending time with my mom and dad. Very fortunate to have two living parents left, but they're getting on, and it's a real blessing to be able to take time, spend this time with them.
Lovely.
And some other vineyard dabbling and some travel, but priorities right now.
Nice. Well, that's very sweet. Well, and I'm glad that your wife is here today too, and I hope you know how much Thomas has meant to us, and really wishing you well in your retirement, and hope you get a lot of family time going forward as well. We do have a resolution, and we like to always take pictures as well. Oh, sorry, I have to open it up for public comment as well. Any members of the public or staff as well who'd like to make a comment? If not, I'll look online as well. You may raise your hand in the Zoom app. If not, I'll turn it back to the board if we have a resolution or a motion, excuse me.
I will make the motion to move staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Weed,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Sethy,
Aye.
and Akbari.
Aye. And we would like to take a picture as well. Normally it's just the board president, but because you have such a great relationship with the entire board, I'll ask if the entire board will join us for the photo.
And do you want to take a quick break or you want to?
We need a
Yes, we will take a break as well.
Okay.
Well, actually, why don't we take the
yeah.
break and then we can take the
would be
photo.
great.
Yes. So we'll take this break right now at 7:16 p.m. Okay, it is 7:29 p.m. We are reconvening an open session. We just concluded item 5.6 and we'll move on to item 6, reports, starting with 6.1, board committee reports. Are there any questions or comments from the board on any board committee reports?
None.
Seeing none, I'll open it up to members of the public in person or online. I see none. So we'll move on to item 6.2, operational reports. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, again, opening it up to the public. And I see no hands. So we will move on to item 6.3, staff presentations, starting with item 6.3.1, other post-employment benefits, also known as OPEB, actuarial valuation. And I'll turn it to Mr. Stevenson.
Great. Thank you, President Akbari. And so in order to kind of keep the pace of our meeting going, I'll turn it right over to our interim director of finance, Calvin Cho, who can introduce the topic and our speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, board members, staff, and community members. Today, we will hear a presentation from the district's OPEB, other post-employment benefits actuary, Mr. John Colbert, principal consulting actuary with Chiron Incorporated. This presentation will focus on one of the district's 2 OPEB programs, our retiree healthcare benefits. The district's second OPEB program is the MCP bonus plan, which carries a much smaller liability under $500,000 and currently include only 3 active employees. With that, I'll now turn it over to Mr. Colbert.
All right. Thank you, and thank you for allowing me to attend via Zoom. We go ahead and move on to the slide. Yeah. To give you some background, a little bit about our firm and the OPEB evaluation process, and then get into the evaluation results, looking at the membership trends, talk a little bit about the discount rate, the funded status, and how the changes in UAL, which is unfunded actuarial liability, occur, and then talk about contributions and our projections. So on to slide 3. Just since this is our first time before the board, give some brief background. We were founded in 2002, and I am actually one of the co-founders of Chiron. We are 116 employees around the U.S., 76 credentialed actuaries, including 49 with the top credential. We are 100% employee owned, so all the people who have ownership in the firm are employees of the firm. On the right-hand side, I just went over a few of the areas, local jurisdictions, including a couple of water districts that in California where we have done OPEB valuations. I myself have done OPEB valuations for more than 30 years. On to the next slide. So in the what we're doing in the valuation, and especially when where you're funding it, if you think of the trust as kind of a tank that holds water, where the level of the water is the assets of the tank, and then coming into the fund, you have district contributions and investment income, and going out, you have benefits and expenses. And what we're doing in the valuation process, one, we're measuring the size of the tank and how full it is, and looking at the assets and the liabilities. We're projecting the future benefit payments, essentially projecting how the benefits will go out. And then we're figuring out how much to turn that district contribution lever so that the plan will stay nice and funded. So on slide 5, moving ahead, just give an overview of the membership between the valuations. And in this plan, we do valuations every other year. So last valuation was done as of June 30th, 2023. This valuation is as of June 30th, 2025. And then for the financial statements, we roll that forward to 2026. So the employees stayed pretty stable in terms of total number. They did get a little bit younger. We did have a number of retirees replaced largely with some active employees, so that the average age went down a little bit, average service went down a little bit. Payroll doesn't have a direct impact since it's not a pay-related benefit, a little indirect in how it's funded. But retirees, you can see increasing with retirees and spouses up 5% since the previous valuation. Moving on to slide 6. The biggest changes from the last valuation were regarding medical costs. Trends were higher than were projected in the last valuation. So the previous valuation, we knew the 2024 premium rates, and now we know it through 2026. For retirees prior to Medicare, their increases were 7.7%, 8.4% for the premiums, compared to a projected 6.2 and a 5.6. And then when we get to the Medicare on the next slide, you see a much more dramatic increase that the plan rates increased 21% in 2025 and 11% again in 2026, compared to 6.2 and 5.6. So that contributed to a loss because the trends went up more than projected, and we'll show that in a couple of slides. On the next slide, we get into talk about the discount rate assumption. The previous report used 6.1%. We're using 6.0. The CalPERS investment strategy is expected to have a 6.4% investment return. This is slightly more conservative than that. One thing we also did was compare the asset allocation strategy and using capital market assumptions from another firm, and that gave us an expected rate of return of 5.94%. So we feel good that the 6% long-term rate of return is a reasonable assumption there. On the next slide, we get into the unfunded actuarial liability. And so on the top line is the actuarial liability. This is kind of an allocation of future benefits to service earned to date. Even though medical benefits aren't paid out for some period of time, we're going to measure them and say, if you had this much in, we would pay for the benefits that are earned to date. Considering for people who are in active service, it prorates that over their working lifetime. So we had $68 million in liabilities as 2 years ago, and now it's a little over $79 million in actuarial liabilities. The actuarial value of assets increased from $49 million to $58 million, and so the unfunded liability, even though the assets went up, is also up a little bit by from 19 million to 21 million. The percent funded, though, did improve from 72% to 73.5%. On the next slide, just a graphical representation of the same thing, where the bars represent the liabilities. We do split that into the retirees and the actives, where the retirees have the bulk of the liability and the actives have a smaller portion. And then the assets are shown by the line, and they're increasing from 72.1 to 73.6% funded. On the next slide, we take you through the change in unfunded actuarial liability. So this goes from the $19.1 million to the $21 million unfunded. We do expect because of the contributions that the district is making, that the UAL will decrease every year. So over the 2 years, it was expected to go down by about 5.9 million. There were some changes in assumptions, and that's down $1 million. The actuarial value of assets gained 0.4. Now, we use a smoothing method so that we take gains and losses from the investment market and smooth them over 5 years. So even though the markets were good over the last 2 years, we don't recognize that fully in this valuation, but we will phase that in over the next couple of years. The census changes, more retirees, led to about a $2 million increase. Whenever there's a change in actuary, there's some subtle differences in how the liabilities are measured. That added 1.7 million to the liability. However, we will see in the future slide that does we're netting that out with some different other changes, that the contribution remains pretty much the same. And then the claims and trend assumptions, which is by and large that experience where we're showing the high claims, especially post-Medicare, high premium increases resulted in a $5 million increase in liability. That gets you to 21 million. in unfunded actuarial liability for this valuation. On slide 12, looking at the contributions and benefit payments. So the contribution set by the previous valuation is what was used for 2025 and 2026, and that was 4.116 million. This valuation is very close to that number. The contribution is 4.157 million to fully fund the liabilities by your fiscal year 2031, 2032 timeframe. From cash flow, the district does pay retiree benefits of about $3.8 million. And then there's an implicit subsidy, which represents the fact that non-Medicare retirees' premiums are actually less than their true cost. And then the district gets reimbursed from the trust for all the benefit payments, and that's the way the funding works. So the contributions go in, the benefits come out. So that district contribution is really the trust contribution. On slide 13, we're just showing the projected benefit payments for the existing employees and retirees. And you'll see that will continue to grow between the two, looking a little under $4.6 million for the upcoming fiscal year, climbing as high as $6.9 million in fiscal year 40-41. And then as more and more people retire and people age and so forth, they'll end up with reducing the benefit payments in the future after that point. Of course, as new hires come in, that'll kind of extend that curve out in the future. All right, on the next slide, we're projecting the assets and liabilities under the current funding method, and we did this using the investment return and discount rate assumptions of 6%, and the contribution of $4.157 million from fiscal year ending 27 through 2032. You're at 76% funded in 2025, 26, and then projected to get all the way up to 100% funded by 2032. The little creep up after that is just due to some timing differences of how the benefit payments are pulled out, but it's essentially be 100% funded as planned by the 2031-32 fiscal year. On slide 15 shows the cash flows impact of that. Again, the gray area represents the benefit payments. So this was essentially a clip of the one slide from a couple slides earlier. The planned funding at 4.157 would be level till 2032. And then once you hit that 100% funded, it'll drop to normal cost, which is about $1 million. So as we get closer to that 2032 funding, we could see some volatility at that point and maybe some ways to smooth out that drop. But, by the time you hit 2032, you'll be fully funded and using about the 4.157 contribution rate. We also stress test this to see on the next slide what happens if we had a 5.5% return. Again, still funding there, but the contribution goes up from 4.2 million to 5.3 million. So we have about a $1.1 million increase, assuming a 5.5% return instead of a 6% return. Slide 17 shows that graphically on the cash flows, and the benefit payments don't change. It's just that the contributions will go up. And then in slide 18, we do the same thing at a 5% contribution. And that it ends up being about $2.2 million additional compared to the $4.2 million that we're having now. So, and that's shown graphically on slide 19. And I know I went through that quickly, but feel open for any questions, and go back and look at anything if any questions.
I'd like to
Thank
make a
you.
comment if I may.
Yes, go ahead, Director Sethy.
So Chiron presented at our Finance Committee meeting, and I'd like to have people turn their attention to slide 13. Because this was the first time going through these analyses that working with our former finance director, John Wunderlich, we came to learn some things. As we were getting closer to full funding in 2032, I think you've heard Director Weed and I express that we wanted to move to a more conservative investment strategy. But the thing to keep an open mind on right now is that we didn't realize when the real peak level would be for our obligations into the future. And so the curve is actually peaking well beyond our 2032 year. And so I'm not saying we're making decisions here tonight, but I think we need to keep an open mind to staying with that more aggressive investment strategy, at least perhaps through 2040. Every year we go through a reanalysis and everything, but in previous presentations, and I credit Chiron with this, I had never really seen this perspective. It was something else in my mind. So that's the key thing I learned here.
Yeah, thank you. My comments, repeat.
Go ahead.
Yeah. We did reach one benchmark, which I had identified many years ago. We started this program. We've reached the point where the amount of money in our account will cover our current retirees. Very little to cover our current employees, but at least we can cover the people who've retired. And we do this every 2 years. The second note was our investments increased by about 20% over the last 2 years. And yet we only had a 2% increase in our funded ratio. That was because of changes in the criteria we use for now retirees living longer. And therefore we have to cover their expenses over a longer period of time. And said that half of the expenses of medical expenses someone is going to encounter will be in the last year of their life, maybe even 6 months. And so it's very difficult to predict what the real impact is going to be. I hope we take the more conservative route. I think we overall have the funding to do so. We're down to 6% discount rate. There are districts which are 7-8%. And if we can lower it, that would be a more conservative step. And while it's frustrating to have to put money into a process and see marginal results because people are living longer, it's something I think we need to do. And it's a primary commitment to our employees that they will have a funded retirement when they leave ACWD.
Well, Director Weed, just a quick comment. There's really two different things we're looking at. One is the discount rate, which we could lower.
Yes.
But the other was the selection of the type of portfolio that we're making our investment in.
Well,
from more aggressive to more conservative.
There are 3 different plans which we could choose from under OPEB. We have taken the more aggressive of the plans, which on ratio.
Right.
If you want to modify that ratio, that's one of the options of taking it more conservative, putting more in fixed income versus equities.
Right. But we're dealing with a number of variables. It's not just one.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to
Yes,
point out that one of the reasons that the investments, you're not seeing the full investments, is that we do phase that in over a 5-year stretch. So really there's a couple $1 million in unrecognized, essentially unrecognized gains that we have in the assets that we're not fully recognizing. So if there's a little bit of a downturn, we're only recognizing like 70, $58 million in assets and 73% funded. But if you look at a market value basis, you're more like 76% funded.
Okay, thank you. It'd be helpful to have that as a side note in your presentation.
Yep, we can do that.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I'll turn to members of the public. Any questions or comments? I don't see any hands up in the boardroom or on Zoom. So I think I'll thank Mr. Kohlberg for his presentation. I'll just look to staff if they have any else to add on this item.
Nothing further. Just wanted to make sure that the full board heard what committee heard, and obviously, we're going through the budget process now. We'll be back to the board on budget-related matters and various assumptions about lots of things in our financial planning, and ultimately a rates process. So, just want to keep bringing the board along.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Kohlberg.
Thank you.
With that, we move on to item 6.3.2, an update on 2026 water supply conditions and fish passage facilities operations. Another very exciting item tonight, and I'll get to Mr. Stevenson.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things that the board seems to be super interested in all the time. And I know some of you can't really wait for this opportunity to learn about, water supply conditions and how the fish passage program is coming along. And so we're super happy to be able to deliver this information this evening. Maybe I'll ask Ms. Heides to set the context.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Yes, we haven't had as many updates this year since we're not in deep drought conditions, which I'm thankful for. But we're really pleased to be bringing to you today the latest update on water supply and conditions and fishery operations. And as we're jumping into this item, I do just want to take this moment to introduce to you Ms. Ava Laser, the district's new water supply supervisor, who may look familiar. She was recently promoted to this new role, having previously served for 6 years as a hydrogeologist for the district, as well as having previous work in consulting for an environmental remediation firm and working for the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. Ms. Laser is a licensed professional geologist in California and holds a dual bachelor's degrees in geosciences and economics from the George Washington University. So we're thrilled to have Ava bringing this presentation to you today. So I'm really pleased to turn it over to share more about our 2026 water supply conditions and fish passage operations. So.
And I'll also note that Ms. Laser is the star of our License to Drill video, which is one of my all-time favorites, as Ava knows, and as many people in the industry know, because I go around talking about it all the time. Sorry, carry on, Ava.
We have a great public affairs team. I'm so grateful.
As I told Ava when she got promoted, don't leave any rock unturned.
I'll try not to. Thank you, Director Sethy. Thank you, members of the board, members of the public. It truly is an honor to be here tonight for the first time in my new role. I have big shoes to fill. I've only been in the role for about less than a month, so please go easy on me. But in the spirit of gratitude and others who came before us, I just want to thank the Water Supply Planning and Conservation team for all of their support over the past month and all of the great work that they do every day. We have in the room with us Dr. Tanza and my new supervisor, Dr. Amparo Flores. So I just want to thank both of them for the support, in addition to the whole Water Supply Planning and Conservation team, which I would include Mr. Thomas Nizer, the Water Supply and Planning Manager Emeritus, as he likes to call himself. He had told me, just a brief interlude, he had told me when I came on that if he had known that I was going to take this position, he would have stayed on for another 6 months. And I hope that that's because he wanted to work with me and not because he was afraid of what was going to happen. So that remains to be seen. But I also want to give special acknowledgement to Mr. Leonard Ash, our distribution maintenance manager, who's allowed me to be a frequent visitor in his office. As you may know, he's the exiting water supply supervisor. So I'm very grateful that he remains here at the district. Okay, so with that, I'm here to present a good news story for water supply conditions and fish passage updates for the district. So next slide, please.
Okay, great. So first, we're going to focus on the water supply updates. So those are local and statewide weather conditions that are affecting our water supplies. And the second part of this presentation will focus on the fish passage facility. So let's start here with the local rainfall report. This reflects conditions at our rain gauge at our blending facility. And the bands in the backdrop here show blue, green, and tan shaded areas showing wet, average, and dry conditions respectively. And you can see where we were as of last Thursday, the 8th. Happy to report that with recent rainfall, we gained another 1.5 inches of rainfall. So we now have a total of 16.75 inches of rain. Putting us much closer to average here. And so because of this, we were able to divert some flows on top of, to top off our recharge ponds also. And those diversions, just to put on my groundwater hat, those diversions aren't yet felt in our indicator monitoring wells, reflecting groundwater conditions, but we expect them to increase as a result of this rainfall. Next slide, please. So here you may be familiar with this graph. This is a cluster of the 8 station indexes we commonly use to monitor Northern California weather conditions affecting supplies in the State Water Project, which are collected at Lake Oroville. And the dark blue line here shows the current year cumulative rainfall as of last week. Again, updated on the 9th, and today the total amount is 47.3, which puts us just above average for rainfall for California. Next slide, please. Great, and we'll see how this affects our statewide reservoir conditions, our storage. Typical reservoir conditions, we like to share this map just showing that we have above average conditions for the state, So overall, we have a healthy amount of storage. Across the state, for example, Oroville is sitting at 124% of average. Next slide, please. Here's the precipitation forecast on the left for the month and on the right for the 3-month seasonal outlook. If you look at the National Weather Service Climate Prediction Center for the next 1 to 2 weeks, Northern California is leaning above normal chances for precipitation also, and that probability decreases in Southern California and to the southwest. Next slide, please. And this has affected drought conditions across the state. You're seeing the influence of the relatively dry weather in Northern California, especially for that month of March. About 44% of the state is not in a drought, and 0% of the state is in a severe drought. So pretty good conditions there. And please keep in mind that this is just one metric to define drought conditions employed by the USDA. It looks at specific drought definition metrics, which aren't totally comprehensive. And luckily, precipitation alone does not equal water supply conditions. Our storage is a function of the team's cumulative actions. Next slide, please. So locally, we're trending towards average, but the water supply team has done a great job of optimizing diversions for runoff that we did receive. And this, coupled with a few healthy water years prior to present, has resulted in a pretty good outlook locally. Lake Del Val, our water right to collect local supplies, has space to collect additional water also. Currently, we have approximately 3,000 acre feet locally in storage there. The Hetch Hetchy also has supplies, and we are expected to receive as much water as we can under our contract with San Francisco. And lastly, DWR State Water Project allocation remains at 30% for the year. Next slide, please. And with this slide, we see how these supplies have affected our water supply planning for the year. So our water year has provided mixed results across the state. Southern California a little bit better than their average, but we are having some redemption here early in April with that recent rain storm. The water supply picture is incomplete without talking about the dry month we experienced in March. This resulted in steep declines in snowpack, which I'll illustrate on the next slide. And overall, the water supply planning picture is optimistic, and our supplies are sufficient to meet our projected demands for the year. Next slide. Okay, and here's an illustration of the snowpack conditions across the state as of the 30th of March. You can see a photo here on the right of the DWR snow surveying team in mid-March conducting a snow survey on a patch of snow in an otherwise pretty barren piece of land there. So yeah, because of those warm conditions, we saw a steep downturn in snowpack, which late breaking news, my colleague, Dr. Tanza, let me know that the snowpack has made a very slight turn upward as a result of the most recent rainfall. So that's new. Next slide, please. Okay, so that concludes our water supply portion of the presentation. I'm going to now move on to updates for our fish passage facilities. Next slide, please. Great, so just as a refresh, as you know, and as you probably know better than I do, our fish passage facilities provide safe fish passage for the Central California coast steelhead, otherwise known as Oncorhynchus micus or omicus. How'd I do? And there are two parts of the year that mark the steelhead's migration seasons. The first is the immigration season, which runs from January through March, where the steelhead move upstream in the watershed to spawn. And the second part of their spawning period, where we are now, we've exited the immigration season. We're now in immigration season. We're now in emigration season, where smolts or young steelhead and kelts, adult steelhead that have just spawned, migrate downstream and head back towards the bay. And one thing to mention here, as part of our permit, there are certain dry year operational requirements. And a dry water year is defined and measured as the periods up to through the end of March, where we gauge how much rainfall we've received so far. And we were just shy of the 15.3 inches of rainfall threshold, which spurred some pulse flow operations. And so in consultation with the Operations Working Group, which is a group that includes representatives from the National Marine Fisheries and California Department of Fish and Wildlife, we came to an agreeable plan to operate above typical bypass flows for a period of 7 days at the RD1 facility to support fish emigration. And that plan, which we are in the midst of employing currently, leverages the storm we experienced starting on Friday to initiate 7 days of increased bypass flows, which are measured at the downstream Sequoia gauge. And operations in this pulse flow protocol have gone exceptionally well over the storm so far, thanks in large part to our dedicated water controllers who operate our facilities. So just a heads up about those pulse flow activities there. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, let's talk about some of the monitoring activities we perform. One of the two biological monitoring activities we have at the RD1 fish passage facilities. So these are pit tags, which measure tagged steelhead through pit tag array. And when I prepared these slides at the end of March, we had 7, but as of today, we have 15 pit tag detections so far this calendar year. So that was 5 more before the pulse flow event began on the 10th, Friday, and 3 more since then, with the most recent one detected this Sunday morning. And this slide says that all were detected in the downstream direction. Some of them are uncertain, so you can detect directionality in the flow based on which arrays they pass through first and second. Some of them were uncertain, but overall, we've confirmed that those tags were associated with San Francisco's tagging efforts upstream. So in all likelihood, these are all out migrating juvenile fish. Next slide, please. Okay, second part of biological monitoring we do, camera monitoring. So use of the ARIS or sonar camera and also our GoPro camera. And overall, these 2 pieces of monitoring equipment are functioning well. The footage here on the left is GoPro footage from November 5th of 2025. This is a possible Chinook salmon. And on the right, footage from sonar camera. Just to note that sonar camera footage requires pretty extensive review from our fisheries biologists that we work with. So those detections will be reported as part of our annual reporting process. Next slide, please. Great, and dissolved oxygen and temperature data are also collected continuously and spot checked especially when we were having that warm March, we've been keeping a really close eye on dissolved oxygen and temperature, making sure that we don't enter stress conditions for the fish. The photo on the right is something that we were all very excited about. This was captured by one of our water controllers, Jason Warren. And this is a pair of steelhead that were migrating upstream through the fish ladder. So it's really an eyewitness account of the successful immigration of our target species, which was very exciting to see. Next slide, please. Great. And finally, just to summarize, we are continuing our compliance with our fish passage requirements while prioritizing local supplies, including diversion. We're improving our banked groundwater supplies as available. We're implementing dry year steelhead emigration operations, which is already in progress, like I mentioned. Continuing to monitor conditions and keeping the board updated on any significant changes also. And with that, I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Laser. I'll look to the board for any questions or comments.
No questions. Just a quick comment. I am really happy to see that the fish are using the fish ladders and that they are using it both ways, actually. Both
Yes.
in migration and migration.
Thank you. Exactly.
Very, very happy to see it. It appears to work. There's so many moving parts in this thing, so many different outcomes that could have happened, and it's just nice to see. Thank you so much.
I have one comment. I keep the USGS Niles gauge open to click on my computer. So when there's a storm event, I like to go to it and see how much time it's taking water to come down through the watershed before it hits the Niles gauge, which can be hours, right?
Yes.
But there are other indicators on that Niles gauge, and one of them I closely follow is what is the temperature of the water as the elevation is going up. And there seems to be a big fluctuation in water temperature, sometimes as much as 8 to 10 degrees. And what comes to mind when I'm looking at that is you have your periods of in-migration and out-migration. And it's critical during those period of times that you have a somewhat more constant temperature. So I think we have to come up with some strategies, especially working with San Francisco, to help kind of equalize the range of the temperature in the water. Because I don't know if it's healthy for the fish to have that kind of fluctuation in temperatures. So it's something I would investigate if I were you or team.
Thank you for the comment. We will. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the project. I think we spent well over $100 million on it so far. So we did identify over about 24 fish that made it downstream that were tagged upstream and came out. But that was in the out migration period of January through March, correct?
Correct.
So now we're going to see if we have any recovery coming up. And we have identified some fish that have made over rubber dam number 1, have we not?
In migrating fish?
Yes.
I believe the photo that I was presenting was evidence of that, but because they were adults, they weren't tagged. So we didn't detect them with our pit tag array, but they were detected.
So that would be on the first dam, but not necessarily the second. And we've improved. We now have a photo for $3,500 versus much more for the other more sophisticated system. They said it now gives us pictures to see what fish we're getting. In September, the Region 5 Aqua is going to have a meeting in United Water District of Ventura. They have the Freeport Passage. Their presentation, they have a similar size program with fish ladders. And it's been in force for 4 or 5 years. Their estimated cost per fish is about $15 million in success. Ours currently, without any confirmed upgrade, is we still have yet to see a fish that's made the full venture. So it's a challenge. in the technology, and maybe it'll improve. Paul Sethy's mentioned temperatures. Fish Bio has indicated that 20 degrees Celsius, less than 70 degrees Fahrenheit, you do not get ocean transfer fish, transient fish. And Zone 7 has done some water temperature studies of the Alameda Creek watershed. And part of their argument of not, and what to put in Del Val and some of the other restrictions, I believe their studies showed that the temperatures were generally above 70 degrees Fahrenheit or 20 degrees Celsius. So I would encourage us to monitor the temperatures, particularly in the recapture program we have going up near Sunol, the last of the WISP San Francisco PUC programs, and trying to capture water that's released from Calaveras to maintain a fishery, and then they've tried to pump it back into San Antonio. So all in play. My read is it's yet to prove out as being a successful investment. So thank you.
Couple additional comments. Most of the temperature readings I see are from the high 40s up to the high 50s. It's that range. It's not going up to more than 60 degrees, or maybe just briefly. I do have another question though. I went out to the site where the two gentlemen photographed the salmon that were hopping up over the concrete dam inside the canyon.
Oh, not familiar with that photo.
They're on social media. They're on our website.
Yeah, it was a few months ago. There was, we have a couple of sort of amateur but very excited nature lovers with cameras that go up and down the creek and caught some really great pictures of, I forget if they were described as steelhead or Chinook, but yeah, they were Chinook.
Two of them.
Yeah, it was.
They dumped over that concrete weir, and there's one notch in that weir where it's really difficult for the fish to get over the entire barrier. Those two did. I'm wondering why that barrier is there. Who owns that concrete weir? Can it be removed so it makes it, you can facilitate having fish move it more smoothly into the canyon? And I stayed there for half a day trying to photograph some fish. I was wading down into the creek, trying to photograph fish straight down because the water was really clear. I was unable to photograph a single fish, spending half a day there. But nevertheless, I was talking to other people there, and they were asking me, why is that thing there? So it's just inside of where the campgrounds are, inside of Alameda Creek.
Yeah, I've had the same difficulty spotting fish with my eyes. It turns out millions of years of evolution of making yourself invisible in water really does pay off. And so, but we know they're there. With regard to monitoring and seeing the fish at RD1 and not seeing them at RD3 or other facility, we don't have monitoring equipment at other district facilities. We have only in RD1. So we won't be seeing fish or counting them going through RD3 or other places. There are, as part of the overall watershed monitoring approach, there are lots of folks on the lookout for steelhead in particular in the various habitat areas within the watershed. But ACWD's own observation of and records related to fish passage are going to be at RD1. And we have seen thousands and thousands of fish go through RD1. What we're really talking about primarily here are steelhead. We've seen some impressive Chinook and so forth, but we know that the fish use our ladder, they love our ladder, and the cost per fish is.
But how are they getting past that concrete barrier?
The little barrier.
And since we've removed so many barriers in House Canyon and upstream, why can't we get that one out?
Okay, so my understanding, and boy, it's too bad Thomas isn't here because I don't have all the answers. I know Lauren knows more than I do. It is not an ACWD facility. It is not considered a barrier to fish passage because we see the fish getting over it all the time. There is some, and I'm not sure if this is the one you're talking about or not, but there is a small, very small, low structure just below the Niles gauge in Alameda Creek.
That's it.
That is required for the gauge to operate properly. So, so that's the reason it's there. It's
Okay.
not considered a real barrier to fish passage.
Yeah.
Certainly not like a 13-foot high dam or a 20-something foot high concrete inclined structure at the drop structure. So, and I didn't want to get too much into the weeds in terms of infrastructure and so forth, but I did also want to mention Director Sethy had sent out some information related to what we may expect in the future with regard to weather and so forth. And Director Sethy, if you wanted to bring that up, this would be the item to bring it up in 6.3.2.
Well, the supplemental material I provided you is in the board packet for people to read. But I became a little curious after hearing for 2 weeks that we may have a real super El Nino or Godzilla El Nino comparable to what happened 140 years ago and before that in 1862. So, and I know from reading history books what the devastation was to California. So I provided information from the Weather Channel, which was first reporting on this. And then I did a Google search of what actually happened in 1877, 1878, and what its impacts were worldwide. And just briefly, they estimate that 30 to 60 million people died around the world. A lot of it was concentrated in India and China, but many other countries. And because of the colonial rule in India, the British were taking out all the grains and letting everybody starve. So there were worldwide consequences to what happened with that last event. And I think it's worth just going through. It's kind of like seeing the probability of two trains crashing head on and not having any plans for what to do in place of that. And there could be many disruption of supply chains, agriculture, shipping, all kinds of things. But this is a very unusual high temperature that we're seeing right now in the Pacific Ocean that is rarely recorded. That's why they're comparing it to what happened in 1877, 1878. I also was teasing Google AI on whether we might see a recurrence of Tulare Lake like we did the last major storm, which we hadn't seen since many decades ago. And that's something that the state needs to plan for. Remember how inadequately we were prepared. Agriculture, people that are living in the towns there, everything got flooded out. So I'm surprised that we aren't hearing more about state preparedness, honestly. So look at your leisure. I think there's a lot of valuable information in there. Let's keep track of it.
Thank you for the comment.
Great. Thank you for those comments. I have a quick question on slide 10 regarding the snowpack conditions. You mentioned that with the recent storm, snowpack conditions had slightly improved. Obviously, the northern region in particular is very low. So I'm curious if you have a sense of kind of where we stand given the latest storm.
Yeah, so that was shared verbally with me from my colleague. Just turned up. Oh, sure.
Yeah.
May I present Dr. Tanzo? Thank you for being here.
So as of yesterday, we've gained about 4 inches of snowpack in the central and the South Sierra Mountain. But if you see that curve there, 4 inches of the snowpack does not improve a lot. So we are still way below the average of the snowpack conditions.
So 4.
Yeah, 4 inch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, snowpack is related to temperature, and Ms. Heides wants to make sure the record, there's a common understanding about temperature issues related to steelhead. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little more, Ms.
Sure.
Heides.
And I don't have a ton of details, but I did want to kind of reassure because I didn't sense there's some concern around temperature and steelhead. They're very hardy fish, and I do just want to share with the board. We do have our great support from our fisheries biologist, and we do a ton of monitoring. We've done studies in the past. The fish seem to be okay with what we're doing at the moment, and we're going to be continuing to study all these things moving forward. And they're very we're being very thorough in our planning. Just right now, we're working on a lot of our planning for our long-term monitoring and mitigation, and we're being very thorough to investigate all the things that are necessary to ensure a successful program. So I just want to reassure you that if temperature is an issue, we will certainly be looking with a deeper dive with our fisheries biologists. So that was all. Thanks.
Titus. I will open it up for any questions or comments from members of the public, in person or online. I see no hands.
Nope.
And so I will thank Ms. Laser for a great presentation, and that will conclude item 6.3.2. And with that, we move to item 6.3.3, the IT master plan update, and I'll turn it back to Mr. Stevenson.
Okay, our theme this evening has been milestones. So we're at another one. Some might suggest we've saved the best for last. You can be the judge. But this is an effort that you will see has been ongoing for some time, mostly internal to the district, a lot of staff engaged in this process to plot our future when it comes to information technology resources and programs. So, Mr. Woke, don't know if you want to set the context here, introduce our team.
Yes, very briefly. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson, and good evening again. As they say, failing to plan is planning to fail. So in line with today's theme, we wanted to provide an overview and informational update to the board about an IT master plan project staff has been working on for the last 12 to 18 months. The process involved exhaustive review of our software, hardware assets, staff skill levels, and technology needs district-wide. And we had Third Wave Corporation who assisted us with the whole process. And they will make the presentation. Mr. Roy Hernandez and his associate, Ms. Amy Barajas, will be making the presentation. But I do want to recognize Mr. David Yu, who's standing before you to give an overview of the project, and also Ms. Jinu Singh, who's the PM for this project for the district. With that, I'll turn it over to David.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stevenson, and thank you, Mr. Wolk. So good evening, board members. Tonight, we're excited to provide you with an update to the Information Technology Master Plan. But before we begin, I'd like to really thank the exec board for their valuable input into the IT Master Plan. They were really engaged to the point where their engagement was even very surprising to our consultants. They've never seen top leadership so engaged in developing an IT master plan. So thank you. I also want to recognize Janu. Janu is our IT analyst in IT, and she coordinated 26 of these sessions that we had amongst the business units here at the district. And she was invaluable to helping us develop this IT master plan as well. So the goal of the IT master plan is to ensure that our technology investments are aligned with the business needs of the district. This isn't a one-time document. It's a living roadmap that we'll revisit each year as our priorities change and technologies evolve. So to help develop this IT master plan, we did go out to an RFP process, and we received 10 proposals. In the end, we decided to go with Third Wave, particularly because of their in-depth experience, and also they have a patented, I'll repeat that, patented approach to developing IT master plans. Some fun facts about Third Wave. They're a nationally recognized firm with 38 years of experience in strategic planning. They've completed 184 IT master plans, 26 of which are water districts. They have a very strong track record with more than 98% of their plans being approved, funded, and implemented. You'll find that their approach is also very collaborative. They involve staff interviews, workshops, and business process reviews to make sure that our IT master plan is practical and is consistent with the district's mission. So with that, I'd like to introduce to you Roy Hernandez. He's the president and CEO of Third Wave, along with Amy Barajas, and she's the senior business analyst. And I'll turn it over to Roy to present the IT master plan.
Get the old glasses out. There you go. All right, very good. Good evening, Mr. President, board members. It's a genuine pleasure to be here tonight. This has been a lot of work. As David mentioned, incredible level of engagement from staff, management team, leadership team, and we're going to walk you through our findings. This is our agenda. We're going to talk about the goals and objectives, some of which David touched on, our approach, and more importantly, the findings and recommendations of the project. We'll finalize by talking about the investment over the next 5 to 6 years. So the vision of the master plan is to adopt a comprehensive IT master plan and implementation roadmap. We want it to be strategic, foster innovation, and be cost effective. Okay? From a mission standpoint, we want it to enhance the internal operational efficiencies of the district. We want the plan to be technologically strategic, financially responsible, and responsive on an operational level. In terms of the goals, anytime you do a master plan, the intent is to look what the operation does, identify its needs, and connect technology to those needs. We need to be responsive. So we look at core business processes, functions, operational issues, et cetera. The intent is to define a clear set of goals and objectives that will help the district move forward over the next 5 years, 5 or 6 years. Even though we call it a 5-year plan, it's actually more like a 10-year plan because systems that get implemented over the next 5 years will be utilized for the next decade. From a planning objectives, we want to make sure that whatever we recommend is actionable. It is not the intent of the plan to talk about philosophical objectives. They have to be real, specific, objectionable, buildable, because when you do that, then you get the desired results. We want the plan to be technologically viable. And by this, we mean that whatever technologies are recommended fit the enterprise architecture. In other words, if we're going to make a recommendation, it should fit with the existing systems that you have. They should work together, talk together, exchange data together. Next, financially responsible. Every initiative that you will see here in a minute, when we defined it by working with staff and management. It has a challenge statement, an impact statement, a benefit statement, and then the budget. So basically, every initiative that we're going to present has a compelling business case. So we didn't just go and say, well, we need that. That's cool. Let's do that. Doesn't work that way. Every item in this plan has been identified, validated, and justified. And then finally, we paid a lot of attention to making sure that we reached out, we engaged staff, management, the leadership team to make sure that we understood exactly what this organization will need in the next 5 to 10 years. There was a lot of engagement, a lot of outreach. The method that we use, which is patented, it's called a logical waterfall methodology. And what it does, it has 3 phases: discovery, requirements, and then finally the plan itself. This is a data-driven methodology. The first phase is basically take a lay of the land to understand the existing environment. And to do that, we had a lot of really good meetings with the IT department. We had 4 2-hour focus groups to understand their challenges. And then we also had to understand the knowledge, skills, and abilities of the IT staff. We also did an IT skills assessment. Okay? The assessment phase is what we call the requirements definition phase. And to do this, we had a series of interviews, management interviews, workshops, online survey, and then the business process workshops, which took a real deep dive at the challenges and opportunities at the district. And then finally, the data from those 2 phases informs the 3rd phase, which is developing a strategy. So when we do these projects, we have a philosophy that says we will leave no stone unturned. And by that we mean that the project will take a comprehensive and thorough assessment of this organization. This is not a cookie cutter project, okay? It is really critical that we understand the uniqueness of this organization, even the uniqueness of your clients and your community. And so the way we do that, and you can see here, we had 20 management interviews, we had 4 2-hour focus groups, we had an online survey where 75 staff members responded with their input, then we had 26 half-day workshops with your staff. And the workshops looked at mission-critical business processes, which were either internal operational processes or service delivery processes. This is some of the data. We're representing it graphically here. From the management interviews, we were talking about how they experience the services that IT provides. And in this particular workshop, the data was mixed, to be honest. Half of the management team had rave reviews. The other half of the other management team said there's room for improvement. And that's okay, because that's what we're looking for. We want to find out where are the weaknesses so we can shore them up, okay? In the staff survey, which is what we call a satisfaction survey, we looked at about 12 different services that IT provides. These happen to be 4. And they're the 4 that rated the best and the 4 that rated the lowest. And if we look at the top 2, ongoing technical support and help desk, the service being provided by the IT department is exceptional. And this is really important because IT is a service delivery organization. So they rated very high. Areas for improvement, business process improvement, and then user training. And then user training is really critical because that's how you get the most out of the investments that you make in technology. So it was a good thing that we found that out. The IT focus groups were these 4 2-hour workshops that we held with IT. And this is really critical because one of the groups that we really want to engage in this conversation is IT staff. They own the systems, they manage them, they support them, they upgrade them, and they are closest to the issue of IT. So we spent a good chunk of time talking with them, understanding their challenges, and documenting them. We mentioned the business process improvement workshops. This is when we did the 26 mission critical assessments of things that staff do here. And this is an example of the graphical representation of the findings. And basically, I'm not going to go through this except to say that we capture what people do, how they do it, the tools that they have or don't have, and the data and information they're producing. The red numbers that you see here on the map, every one of those indicates a challenge, a bottleneck, an inefficiency, a redundancy, a disconnect, something that is impeding the efficient execution of this work, whether it's internal or service delivery. So the objective of this plan, pragmatically, is to make sure that we identify recommendations that mitigate all those red numbers. Because if we can get rid of those challenges, bottlenecks, then obviously the operation will function more smoothly. All right, there was a number of key, by the way, there's, I think there's 23 key projects that were identified in the project. These are the top 8. IT organizational resources, basically this is to do an analysis of the current resources and their ability to support the current and future systems, okay? The documents and records management issue identified a need to take the work that's been done and just take it to the next level and identify policies and practices and better utilization of existing systems to basically enhance the way the district manages documents and records. The third one, computer maintenance management, that came up a lot. It came up several times in the management interviews and workshops. And then we're looking at taking a system that you already have, CityWorks, and leveraging it in a number of areas that will enhance the maintenance management of the district's systems. Public Works System Extension, this is, again, a software application that we will be looking to implement to basically monitor that particular system. This is key because it enhances customer service. Enterprise data management, all districts, any district, this one included, manages a lot of data. Alphanumeric data, graphical data, geographic, spatial data. So here, the recommendation was to carry out an assessment of all the different systems and do what's called a data rationalization, which basically says, how much stuff do we have? How do we better organize it so we can better manage that data? And more importantly, so we can analyze that data, okay? Enterprise resource planning. Now this came out a lot, and this is a major system. This is a big project. And besides the fact that it's obvious that that system needs to be looked at, one of the decisions that was made is to not do it in years 1 and 2, because it would be disruptive to other initiatives. So we basically, in the schedule, I think we put it in starting in year 3 so that it would not be too disruptive and get in the way of other initiatives that were deemed to be more important. A disaster recovery site, living in California and having the data that you have, we live in earthquake country, and having another site to store data is always a good idea in this state. Okay? If we were living in Houston, it would be tornadoes. In California, it's earthquakes. So to have a disaster recovery, which basically takes the data that you have here, makes a copy of it somewhere else, so that in the event of a man-made disaster or a natural disaster, you can recover the data quickly. Okay? And then finally, this is one for all of you, is to enhance the boardroom, the systems that are used in this space. Okay? All right. Now, I mentioned we came up with 23 different initiatives. Now, the challenge here is that we can't do them all at once. Even if you had all the money in the world, we can't do them all at once. So what we have to do is we have to prioritize them, right? So prioritization is good because it allows us not to only plan projects, it allows us to plan workload, resource allocation, and finance. And I want to stress finance, because when we're talking about a 5-year plan, almost like a CIP, the investment curve, we call it the investment curve, is really critical. And so we want to make sure that it's reasonable and doable, okay? But these are the criteria that we use, how many times it was mentioned, whether it was customer service, business process improvement, operational efficiencies, et cetera. These are the 22 initiatives that we came up with. I'm not going to go through all of these, but suffice to say that you can see by the categories that this is a comprehensive plan. Infrastructure, hardware, department software, enterprise software, service delivery, public-facing software. So we basically identified a number of key initiatives that should be carried out over the next 5 years. Now that we knew what we needed and we prioritized it, a key part of this project is understanding this is the investment curve. What does the investment curve look like? And this is very important because this has to be integrated with the overall finances of the district. So what we're looking at here, and we didn't do a 5-year plan, we did a 6-year plan to provide a little bit more flexibility and latitude. But what you can see in this chart, besides the numbers over 6 years, is we've actually separated the type of investment: hardware, infrastructure, hardware, software, and professional services. And so this is a fairly detailed analysis of all the initiatives summarized in a budgetary format. You can see we're looking at about $9 million over 6 years. This is what we call the implementation roadmap. And this indicates when these prioritized projects might be initiated. And again, this is a very important document because it is not only used by the IT department to make sure that they have sufficient resources to execute these projects, whether they're internal or contracted, but it also allows the departments that will be affected by these IT projects to plan accordingly and to make staff available. And then finally, this also should be used from a planning standpoint for the procurement manager or whatever to make sure that they're planning for the procurement of these systems. Oops. So finally, that is our presentation. In terms of next steps, we recommend that the master plan be finalized, that we ensure that funding be allocated at least for the first year or two, and then we can come back and see how well we did, and then start the implementation phase. Finally, this is a living document. We're not publishing today and thinking that it's going to cover us for 5 years. It is not. As technology changes, innovations happen, the position of the economy changes. There's a number of things that will change, we know, over 5 years. So this is not cast in concrete. However, it does provide a very good direction and a vision where the district needs to be in 2032. Okay. This is not a plan for next year. Okay, this is a plan for 2032 to 2035. So again, and we recommend that it be revisited once a year over that period of time. I would be delighted to take any questions anybody might have.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
I think maybe we can see if there are questions, comments from other members of the board, and we'll just check on Director Weed here in a sec.
Okay.
Let me thank you for an excellent presentation. I'm glad you have gone so diligently through all the details. I really wasn't expecting that, so I'm really pleased to see that here. Just so you know, I spent my career in high tech in Silicon Valley.
Really? And where? If I may ask. Maybe not.
I came up the product management ladder, so I was working with a lot of different products. First of all, I'd like to know, trying to find the slide here. Which bucket does all of our AMI, here it is, slide 9 and 10. Since we're acquiring so much AMI data, is that under number 5 here on slide 10, enterprise data management?
Correct. Yes.
So we're anticipating that we are going to be storing that data, managing it, analyzing it, all those things, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. The other thing is, are you looking at redundancy across the system, or are you only focused on one area on that enterprise data?
No. The analysis looked at existing systems. An example, and then if you mean redundancy, instances where we have, let's say, similar or the same data in different systems. Is that what you're alluding to?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes, we did look at that. And for example, an example of that would be maintenance management work orders and computer maintenance management. I think at the present you have at least 3 different systems, and maybe more if you look at the groundwater wells. So you may have even 4 systems that have similar or the same data or parts of the same data in them. And one of the things that we looked at is how can we consolidate that? Instead of 4 systems, maybe 2 systems, maybe have a consolidation of data, maybe employ a data warehouse. But we did look at that, and the recommendations address that.
I also have some concerns about the investment numbers for hardware and software. In particular, hardware. Are we really forecasting our needs well through 2032? Because this looks awfully low for an organization our size. And I know the prices of equipment. I mean, a server by itself can be tens of thousands.
10, 15K, easy.
So it looks to me like we're lowballing the real investment that's required for hardware over a several year period here, because I could anticipate it's quite a bit more.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would have to agree with that. And here's the variable.
On the software side, you know, it looks reasonable except for out in the outer years. Software maintenance will be growing over time. But I think the final 2 years of your period here for software expenditures is really low. And I have a hard time believing that you can get by with the numbers you have here for hardware.
Okay.
Because it's a constant cycle to upgrade and
Yeah.
improve.
Yeah. Right.
So, what we're doing here in 26-27 fiscal year is we're doing a major catch up in updating our equipment. After that, the equipment is on a 5-year cycle for replacement, like for servers. So when you put the servers on a recycle period, the cost is not as high as the initial purchase, right? And so we did look at upgrading in subsequent years. And the numbers that you see are what Roy has for standard industry when we do these upgrades. So
I have to share a funny story here. When I first started on the board, this is 2010, I asked to take a tour of our IT equipment and everything else. And I was looking in one of the rooms and I go, we've got AS400s that are still running here right now from IBM from back in the early 1980s. What is that junk doing here?
yeah, that's gone now, right?
And I don't want to see the district get so locked down into old equipment. Our equipment becomes dinosaurs. You know, we should be a little bit more of a robust, up to the current technology organization.
Well, I came out of IBM, so I know what an AS400 is. Anyways, that aside, no, I think you bring up some good points. I think what David just said is true, that a lot of these systems are on a 5-year replacement. I'll give you an example. One of the things that we're seeing a trend now, and I've seen it for the last 3 years with many of our clients. So we're not doing 5-year IT strategic plans anymore. Well, more and more, we're doing 10-year IT strategic plans because of the points that you bring up. Because when you do a 5-year plan, you're missing a piece of the picture. If you have a 5-year PC replacement plan, 5-year server. If you have a 10-year infrastructure, Cisco routers, they might be every 6 or 7 years. You're going to miss this. You're going to miss the second replacement. So more and more now, our clients are saying, "Hey, we want to tie the IT master plan to the CIP because we can merge some of these projects, but the 5-year plan doesn't show it." So you're right on the money. You're right.
I just want to make sure that we're not being short-sighted and that we're not under-investing in critical equipment.
We're
Because
not.
the whole organization runs on this stuff.
And this is why you see that it jumps out, the purple in year 2, that's infrastructure. And so that's really the foundation of what everything runs on top of that. And that's what you're seeing here. And we are not, this is a very thorough assessment. And
final comment.
Yeah.
I don't want to dominate the discussion here, but mentally, I think all of us as board members make comparisons on how much we're spending on other projects and other choices that we have.
Mhm.
If you told me we were going to spend twice this amount of money, I would support it.
Wow. Okay.
Because this is the foundation of running any organization today, and we can't even anticipate all the new things that we're going to have to adapt to with the AI world and everything.
Sure.
I just read an article today saying half of all white collar workers in America now are using AI in one form or the other.
Correct.
So we need to be prepared for the future, not under-prepare ourselves. I'll leave it at that.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Director.
Anybody
Sethy.
else?
Any other questions or comments? I have a few questions, but I want to go to the board.
Oh, thank you. My apologies. I an upper respiratory thing that suddenly came on. A number of years ago, we made a terrible mistake in our IT. We went with JD Edwards One World, which was a good system, but we customized it.
Mhm.
We were bringing in specialists from all over the country so we didn't change our prior business practices
Mhm.
and applied it to it. After 10 years with no upgrades, because we had so customized it, we were not able to take advantage of the JD Edwards standard improvements.
Mhm.
We threw it out, but I still see JD Edwards marbled into our database.
Mhm.
So I would encourage you as you go through this to see if if we need to do a complete rehab again I think we've gone to Oracle and Oracle acquired JDE. Are we good with do we have the best of the Oracle programs? Because Oracle has stopped supporting these new acquisitions such as JDE.
Yeah.
So in that view and oversight, will you be able to provide it?
Well, that's one of the recommendations we made, is that that the district consider replacing JD Edwards. Is that what you're proposing or suggesting?
My point is, will you be able to make an analysis?
Yes.
Do we have a hybrid type systems that we've patched together?
Mhm.
Or should we go to Oracle and see what their latest and greatest is and maybe make the jump?
No, we did not look at Oracle because doing a system comparison is not part of an IT strategic plan. We look at what you have, its weaknesses and opportunities for improvement. But I can tell you this, of the 26 workshops that we did, the business process, I want to say a third of them were for finance, for the finance department, specifically to identify and assess how JD Edwards is working or not working for the district. And that analysis is extremely thorough. So literally a third of the business process workshops were dedicated to your question. But we did not do a comparative analysis of, JDE to Oracle or to Tyler or anything else. No, we did not do that.
And the second is our recovery capability. We put a lot of effort into trying to see the security consciousness and people don't accept it. But the reality is, as with levies, two types, one that have failed and those that are going to fail. So what do we do? Do we have the recovery ability when the system fails?
Mm-hmm.
And your thoughts on that point, I think, would be basic and instrumental to whatever we do, because there'll be a point where someone will hack us and or it'll may be internal.
Correct.
But we're going to lose it. That you keep in mind, how do we recover?
Okay, as it so happens, the district happens to have a disaster recovery policy. Our recommendation is that existing document, that artifact that you already have, that it be beefed up and turned into a full-blown disaster recovery business continuity plan. So you have something, but from our perspective, it needs to be completed as a best practice, which we always recommend best practices. We recommend that it be completed and that it be tested. Because to have a disaster recovery plan or business continuity plan, a document that is not tested, doesn't give you any reassurance that it will work.
Okay, well, my point being not that we deter failures, but that we have the ability to respond to a complete failure.
That's what disaster recovery plan is. And the business continuity plan, that is exactly what it's about. How do we recover and how do we get the business, functioning in a reasonable amount of time? Yeah, that's one of the recommendations. We did recommend that in the study.
Thank you.
Yep.
You? So I do have a few questions.
Sure.
Appreciate you taking some time to explain this. Similar to Director Sethy, I come from the industry, built server rooms, I've worked on DMS, I code ABAP, and so I'm very familiar with ERP systems as well. So I have some questions on slides 9 and 10, and I'll just run through them in order. First of all, for item number 2, you mentioned implementing an EDMS. I thought we had an EDMS already, or at least something rudimentary. Can you clarify what we have and what you're suggesting we move to instead?
Sure. You currently have a SharePoint system, and it is like many EDMS, which stands for Electronic Document Management, a more contemporary term is enterprise content management. Document management is a term that was born in the 1990s. But in 2000s, when content became video, images, recordings, and documents, the term changed to enterprise content management. So what you have right now is basically functioning as a document management system. What we're recommending is that not only that system, but the document and records management of all the departments in the district be assessed, and that a determination be made as to the content management requirements of the district. I'll give you an example. If you look at information, whether it's data or hard copy, as an enterprise asset, you should have almost like an inventory asset management system. If we're looking at data and documents in an enterprise, as an enterprise asset, you should have an inventory of everything you have. And that inventory should be ideally should be in one system. And there should be a numbering and naming convention. The technical term is taxonomy. It should have a taxonomy. Every piece of data and document in this organization should be part of that taxonomy. You don't have that today. What you have is a partial solution that has documents stored in it and it's functioning, but not an enterprise solution. What we're recommending is that that assessment be made. You determine what you have, what you want to get rid of, what you want to keep, and then develop an enterprise content management plan, and then determine, is SharePoint the right tool?
Yeah.
It may not be.
Staff has heard me complain about SharePoint.
Yeah.
SharePoint is the bane of my existence, and I hate that we use it as a rudimentary DMS today.
Yep.
And so I appreciate you touching on that.
And by the way, this opinion is not just it's not just an opinion. From 1988 to 2008, we were the leading document management system implementer in the state of California. So I've gotten lifetime achievement awards from the industry group for the projects that we've done. So this is a very well-informed recommendation we're making. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I appreciate you talking about it as an asset, data as an asset.
Correct.
Versus just versus looking at it as just a variety of documents.
Yep.
Then on item number 3, you touched on our CityWorks solution.
Mm-hmm.
Under that, you put mitigate several disparate platforms. So are we suggesting that we would deprecate any existing platforms and move specifically to CityWorks? And if so, what would we be deprecating?
Well, there's a lot of detail. That particular write-up, there's a very long write-up. By the way, every one of these has a very long, detailed write-up describing what we mean. But in that case, the answer is yes. But again, someone needs to look, that needs to be looked at to say, by the way, CityWorks is a very powerful system. It does a lot. And for a district, it can do a lot. What we're not sure of is because I think you have 3 or 4 different systems. And some of them actually overlap. Some of them share information. So what we're saying is, let's take a look at, again, asset management as a topic and asset management data as an enterprise asset. And let's determine how much of that CityWorks is really well positioned to do. And then what it cannot do, then maybe you do it with a second system. But you shouldn't have 3 or 4 systems, is what we're saying.
Got it. Okay, makes sense.
Can I ask what the relationship is moving forward with your firm and our team here? Are you going to have somebody on site here working on a daily basis? Are you part of this professional services budget moving forward?
No.
You just came up with the strategy.
Correct.
Okay.
I could answer that.
So maybe the question is for David.
Yeah.
How are we planning the implementation of all these things?
So each of the 22 initiatives that got discovered during this IT master planning process, each one has to go through a assessment on how we're going to implement it. We might have to go out to an RFP for consulting services. Like, for example, if we choose to upgrade the JDE system, we'll probably go out to RFP to get a consultant in who has done upgrades for enterprise management systems. Garoom also had a comment.
No, that's it. You explained it very well.
Okay.
Thank you, David.
And the second question I had was, I hope you're going to be able to measure your progress and report it back to the board. that you have some benchmarks that say, did we achieve what we wanted to do? Because this is kind of amorphous to us as board members. We can't see all the details that are going on. But I know that we represent the public, and I'd like to know if we're getting a real return on our investment for what we're doing.
Right, so this IT master plan is what we call the living document, right? Every year, we're gonna have to review it to take a look at our priority changes in the business, right? And then also because the technology evolving, what might be good today may not be good tomorrow. So the intent is to provide updates to the board as we take on these initiatives.
Well, I saw earlier in the presentation that you are looking at, one area was for cost savings that we incur by doing something.
Right.
It would be really nice to know, how much are we saving, when we do make these changes? That's just one of the things I saw.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, all these initiatives upfront cost money. Analysis has to go in to determine how much we save in the long run.
Well, the ultimate report would be, how much have we made the district more efficient for our ratepayers? How's that?
We have to take a look at that on a project by project basis. Before any of these projects.
Globally, we should say, hey, we're 10% more efficient today. I'm giving you a challenge.
Yeah, please.
I mentioned earlier that every initiative has a challenge statement, impact, solutions, and benefits. So the potential benefits have already been identified. They are the metric. So to get back to David's answer, as each initiative is carried out, the potential benefits were identified by stakeholders. So those can be your metrics. They can be business process improvement, staff time savings, lowered costs, even increased revenue to some extent, not a lot, but to some extent. But the metrics, there's two types of metrics. Number one is the execution of the plan. How many projects were started? How many were completed? How many were canceled? How many were completed on budget? Those are kind of project management metrics. And then the metrics that you're talking about is really desired outcomes, KPIs. What do you want the KPIs to be, right? Increased efficiency, cost savings, increased revenue. That's something that really should be defined with each individual project because every initiative is slightly different. They're not all the same. Some initiatives, for example, are technology related, but some of them are operational related. In other words, the way IT does their operations. So they're going to have different metrics. Other metrics are management policy centered. They're going to have different metrics. But the fact is that the potential benefits are included with every initiative. And that could be a starting point for developing the KPIs.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So I actually have probably another dozen questions that I came with, but I'm going to try and be respectful of time. And so I'm not going to go through all of them, but I want to focus on three more.
We're not going anywhere.
On the next slide, I'll just make a quick comment on the enterprise data management. I actually see this as being one of the most critical aspects of our IT master plan going forward, because appropriate data management policies for us as we collect more data and as things like AI start to develop and we start to utilize those internally, we want to make sure that we have clearly documented data management policies. And so I wanted to call that out. As I read that, to me, that kind of stuck out as one of the primary focuses for us in this master plan.
Okay.
On number 6, the ERP system. So this one I think gave me pause. I have seen ERP system implementations, good, bad, and ugly. I mean, Target Canada is like a case study in how not to do an ERP system implementation. I'm concerned, or I guess maybe a question to you. Would we need a dedicated staff person specifically to manage that ERP system? Because they're quite complex systems. If you think of SAP in particular, it can take an entire team just to manage that. So I'm curious what your thoughts are for a district of our size. How would we manage an ERP system like that?
You're absolutely correct. ERP systems are the most complex systems to implement and manage. So we did make resource recommendations where we identified the required resources to support these systems, the maintenance management, the ERP, the larger systems. And ERP would be the largest. And we did make recommendations related to that.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was the case. I'll just do one final question and wrap up here. On number 7, on the DR site, this has been something that I've brought up with staff before as well. I've always been concerned about using TP2 as a DR site because any challenge here at headquarters, be it seismic or some other natural disaster, will likely impact TP2 as well, or better than likely chance. I'm used to seeing like a DRBC plan focus primarily on moving data to the cloud or moving it offsite, like other parts of the country or other parts of the world. Is that part of the plan here, or do you see this differently?
To be honest, I do not recall specifically whether where we recommended the DR site be. But your point is on the money. That DR sites, again, living in California, should not be, in this organization or down the street, preferably not even in California. So, data storage on the cloud is probably the best way to go. You want to protect your data. You do not want it to be in the place where the disaster will occur. So that's a best practice. And that's our recommendation. A lot of times our clients will say, well, we have a plant site. We have a plant site 5 miles down the road. Can we put it there? The answer is yes, presuming you got the environment for it. But in practical terms, it's not the best solution because you do not want your DR site to be in the same town or even state that you're located in. And that is a best practice.
Okay. I can always talk about this for a long time. I want to end there. Yeah, I will make a request of staff. I would love to go through the IT master plan in a little bit more detail, if that'd be possible.
You bet. We'll give you all the access you could ever dream of.
Great. Awesome. Any other questions or comments from the board, members of the public? I think we don't have any.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great. With that completes item 6.3. We'll move on to item 6.4, general managers.
Okay, well, I had a whole list of various public engagement opportunities for you all, but I'll just refer you to the email that you all received from Shireen Gonzalez. With a quick reminder, we have upcoming engagements with the public at City of Fremont's Earth Day at Washington Hospital on Saturday, April 18. We are springing into STEAM on Wednesday, April 22nd. Importantly for us, we have our historical mural unveiling and tree planting ceremony. You're certainly all invited to attend that. That is April 23rd, Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. So definitely mark your calendar for that one. We'll also be engaged in a number of additional events, including a health fair at Sutter Hospital, Tuesday, April 28th, 10 to 2. So keep an eye on your email for more exciting opportunities to engage with your constituents, our customers, but definitely pencil in that tree planting ceremony. That would be great.
Is there concern on any of these items to having 3 board members or more present?
See, these are public engagement events, and the tree planting is a ceremonial event. I don't believe there's an issue, correct?
There is an exemption under the Brown Act for purely ceremonial activities. So if it's purely ceremonial, then you could have a majority of the board there without violating Brown. But you can't talk about district business at that event.
We'll police your presence. And that is all the general manager's report today.
Perfect. Thank you. With that, we move on to item 7, comments, reports on meetings attended, and agenda item requests. Anything from Director Huang or Director Gunther?
Just a quick note that I plan to attend the the City of Newark State of the City address this weekend is on the Saturday. Yeah, the 18th on the Saturday.
Great. Director Gunther, anything?
No, I won't. I will most likely not be at the tree event. I will be in Monterey that morning. So the timing, I don't believe we'll be back in time for that.
We would not want you to speed in order to attend our event.
Well, we'll certainly miss you, Director Gunther. Then I'll move to Director Sethy. I know you have a couple of items here.
They're very quick. I plan to be at the Newark State of the Union too. Mayor Hannon personally invited me. Second, 7.1. The annual dinner was our normal California Special Districts Association update on all legislation we should be aware of. It's like going through the Aqua Ledge Committee, but in our case, we have Colleen Haley, who you've met here before, gave us a very thorough update. And then we had a 1-hour presentation and Q&A with our state senator, Aisha Wahab. Was very impressed with not only the fact that she gave a very coherent speech without any notes, but she could off the top of her head recite the bills and issues and other legislators that she was asked very pointed questions about. I asked some too, relevant to cities recovering from the loss of redevelopment agency money, which leads me into our 7.2. Director Weed and I attended the Alameda County Countywide Oversight Board meeting where I am the elected representative for Alameda County Special Districts Association and John is the alternate. We had one issue to resolve, which was the closing of the books for the city of Berkeley on their redevelopment history. They are now submitting their final ROPS, that's the recognized obligation payments, to the California Department of Finance. Hopefully they'll get an affirmative answer back, and it has to come back to our Oversight County Committee to put the final stamp of approval on it. And that's my report for the evening. Oh, forgot. So we have not hosted a meeting for Alameda County Special Districts Association in, I believe, 10 years.
Oh, no, we hosted one a
years
couple
ago?
of years ago. Director Gunther was president. It wasn't that long ago.
Well, we're not on the current list of years going back before the pandemic.
We did do one.
I don't know if you looked at that list.
I remember being there and it wasn't that long ago.
Okay.
But we're, as I understand it, we're on the list to potentially host again.
Yeah, it's like the list of all the special districts in the county. And we had a date there next to when everybody did it. We're like one of a handful that haven't done it.
Yeah, I guess ours wasn't memorable enough.
I remember.
So we are targeting, I think, January 13th to host a meeting down here at our district. And so I have a little bit of coordinating to do. That date is not finalized, but
Okay, let us know.
Thank you for the work
We'll be ready.
to give us a date.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for covering the Alameda County Oversight Committee. They had a disaster at the Park Tower building that houses ACWD and East Delta Conveyance Authority. Water line broke on the 25th floor of this high rise. Water went down, hit the electrical conduits, hit a electrical box on the 7th floor, which started a fire. And then the sprinklers went off on the 5th, 6th, and 7th floor. So the entire building is closed indefinitely. To that end, on Thursday of this week, there will be a Delta Conveyance Authority meeting for the Design Construction Agency that will now, one of the one of the public locations will be ACWD, or if one wants to attend and observe one of those meetings.
Is that
Thursday, this Thursday.
here at ACW?
Yes. You'll be able to zoom in. They have to list the locations.
Oh.
And now ACWD is being listed as one of those locations. Region 5 is scheduling a September 3 and 4, I believe, meeting in Oxnard with the United Water District hosting, and we'll be taking a look at their various facilities. There is a Hetch Hetchy tour being scheduled by the Bosca in San Francisco overnight. I believe it's in January 21, 22. I would encourage I'll be on another commitment that day, but there is a opportunity for another board member or ideally a staff member to make that trip to see the Hetch Hetchy system.
What were the dates again, Director?
I'll confirm.
Okay,
the dates.
we can find out too.
Is it in June?
I think it's in June.
It's not in January, John.
No, June. I'm sorry. It's in June.
It's in June coming up.
Okay. All right. So those are the 3 items, and
I've been on it before. It's a wonderful tour. I really encourage anybody from the staff can go. It's absolutely wonderful learning experience. See, this side is shaking your head.
And do we have any information at all on when San Francisco is going to do a ribbon cutting in Sonoma?
We don't have that information.
All right, thank you.
There's I don't know if anybody saw the press on that just recently. Check out East Bay Times. They wrote an in-depth article. It's been a disaster.
I'll leave you with one more. The environmental community has come up with a cherry solution for Hetch Hetchy, where they argue you can drain Hetch Hetchy and use Cherry Reservoir for the water supply. Drives 2 things. One, the history that TID has given their water rights to the Tuolumne Hetch Hetchy to SFUC and kept the water and taken San Francisco's water rights for Cherry because they're using the water for irrigation and the water is much less useful. But it brings to note that a tenet of Western water law is that if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. And we're reaching the point where maybe our conservation efforts are as such that the environmentalists can come up with a point that there's enough volume and water out of the poor quality of Cherry that you really no longer need Hetch Hetchy for water storage and supply. Do we really need, we maybe want to sit back and put that into our calculations as we promote our conservation programs and see if we really need to exceed the requirements of the state of California for their guidelines on individual conservation. San Francisco, they had a presentation earlier that San Francisco has enough water for this year. They have enough water till 2030. They have 5 to 6 years of storage in the Bay Area to meet their requirements. They have a recycled water program, which they keep moving to the back and to supplement the Redwood City efforts. And the challenge will be to pay for a pipeline to take the recycled water uphill to Crystal Springs Reservoir to supply, to provide additional supply. Costs be damned. So, thank you.
All right, just double checking, was that 7.2 or 7.3?
I was just going to ask.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, Director Wheat, did you touch on 7.3 or trip to?
If I've covered them both, that's fine.
No, you didn't cover it.
I don't think you covered it.
This is
The
the
well conference.
Water Education Foundation for Latino Leaders.
Well, conference at a new casino, relatively new casino, Table Mountain, at the at Bryant near the Middleton Reservoir. It was interesting to see the presentation. When I was last there a number of years ago, they were talking about the Temperance Flat Dam. Temperance Flat was originally an area to the north of the reservoir that they were going to use for additional water storage. Couple plants were in present that were considered endangered, so they moved a proposal to have a dam built in the middle of the reservoir. They retain more water at 700-foot total elevation, concrete. Common sense came forth, and they talked about how, even though they were offered $170 million for planning, the TID and others representatives said, do we really want us to foolishly spend this money? So they dropped the project. And that put more money back into the pot. But it was one of the several really bad ideas that when they, even though they had the money being thrown at them, in these cases, they actually stopped.
Director Weed, what happened at the well conference?
Well, this was at the well conference was at that location. They had one interesting presentation from the head of the Indian tribes who was involved in a chief, senior chief, who talked about the meadows that he had a staff of 34 that were building, and they were creating meadows in the headwaters. But his comments about water were a bit alarming. One, he talked about the current that comes down from Alaska to Mexico along the coast. And he said, it's all this fresh water that we're not tapping into. And then he was asked about Delta conveyance, and he said, oh, he was worried about the fish in the San Joaquin, which hopefully someone afterwards told him that the Delta conveyance takes water from the Sacramento, not the San Joaquin. So it's scary when leaders in their community, and when these stakeholders really are oblivious, even the most fundamental aspects of water and water policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Weed. That concludes item 7. And with that, at 9:21 p.m., we will adjourn tonight's board meeting. Thank you, everyone.